Where we going with it? Now where we going with it? Where we going with it? What? Where we going with it? Ha! Yo, where we going with it? Ha! Where we going with it? Going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I seen kingdoms come and I seen kingdoms fall. You can check it for yourself. You can read it on the wall like graffiti on the wall. MenyetAnkh is what it's called. I taught y'all in the past. Now I'm back to teach you all how to elevate and repent from filthy ways. I know it's hard, but it feels good to fast for 30 days. I got y'all searching for the land that's across the burning sands, where the men turn into gods and the gods turn into men. The jewel of the Nile is in the motherland. Each one teach one, so go tell your brother, man. You're feeling down, then you got to snap back like a rubber band. Lord, going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. Hey. All the words I chant when I come forth by day. From the night, these sacred chapters I recite. Do my voodoo every day till I feel some things are right. Speaking in words of power, speakers get blown. Ancient tradition, deep in your bones. Ancient wisdom, speaking in poems. Melodies take you deep in the zone. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. Too many youth wanna ride and die. I try to tell them about the I and I. In my presence, I got y'all feeling divine essence. I come through dropping jewels that's full of timeless lessons. Not Egyptian, I'm comedic, spitting poetic relics from the highest mind. Look to the skies to find where I am headed. I come when I be spitting, y'all be player hating me. I don't know, probably cause I'm serious like A and B. And C, we alike sometimes more than we would like. I got the gift of gab, I was born to speak on mics. Got raw in me glowing, now I shine like skies in Cali. I represent the hood and that hood is the Nile Valley. They call it hobby, the illest of the niggas, nah that's not me. I'm that golly representative, spit the hottest sentences with the eye for rule. I see the evil that lurks in you. I live by 10 virtues that stops me from hurting you. I use oracles, so nowadays I plan better. Now I walk in the presence of God's angels and ancestors, walking my path, speaking in code, talking in math. I got an inner divinity, mental serenity. I walk in my eye, even on my path alone. And in these zone, man, I got heart like Indiana Jones. I'm not a raider, but a raiser of the lost ark, the monarch of a righteous covenant. You ain't liking it, you loving it. I show y'all sacred ways from the ancient of days. The metaphysical master manifesting the greatest displays of mic control. Connect the spirit, mind, and the soul. I rhyme with flows that opens up your mind so you grow like the trees, but of course not the kind that you smoke, but the kind that keeps you rooted in tradition. I bring it back like how it was in the beginning. Going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack.
Paradigm Shift TV 314. DMG the poet. The best. Trust me. Any type of knowledge you need, anything you want to see, check them out. Paradigm Shift TV 314. Peace.
Hey, look. Labels blowing up my line and got me missing calls. Told her you ain't gotta hit me till you licking. Feel like ZVF, baby, I be cooler than the mink weather. Make a Coke bottle, give me brains till I think better. Back up on my again, hanging out with Benjamin. Franklin got me stankin' in the Lincoln, talking dividends. Look at what we did again. Brought the
Welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. This is your brother, DMG the Poet, a.k.a. Brother Pianki. And we got another powerful show with a very powerful guest. But before we get into our spiel, let me do my usual greeting. Let me say God bless to my Christian brothers and sisters. Let me say Hotep to my Kemetic brothers and sisters. Let me say Assalamu alaikum to my brothers and sisters in the NOI. Let me say Islam to all my Moorish brothers and sisters. Let me say peace to all my brothers and sisters in the nation of gods and earth, them 5 percenters. Let me say shalom to all my Israelite brothers and sisters. Let me say a big salute to all my atheist brothers and sisters. What's up to all my Abo brothers and sisters? Big salute to all my Rasta brothers and sisters. And finally, last but not least, I want to say Jambo to all the rest of my brothers and sisters all throughout the African diaspora, be it here in the wilderness of the United States of America or beyond. Y'all know I say that greeting for one reason and one reason only. It's because if you black, I'm with you. And I hope that you with me. Our different ideologies should not keep us from uniting. We can have unity without uniformity. And we can disagree without being disrespectfully disagreeable. Shout out to the Slim Reaper. With that being said, Queen, please reintroduce yourself to the Paradigm Shift TV 314 audience.
Ankh EnMaat, everybody. Every time I hear you say that, like, reintroduce yourself, I'm like, my name is like, I just want to bust out Jay-Z real quick. But Ankh EnMaat, everybody. My name is MenyetAnkh EnMaat Menta. I am a Kemetic blogger, lifestyle practitioner, like, I don't know, all these like kind of labels, but essentially I use my platform to just educate people what it looks like to live as a Kemetic person in the 21st century. You know, a lot of times, and I remember this, and this is again why I started, a lot of the platforms, it only looks a certain way, like you have to be a priest or a priestess and, you know, stuff like that. So my platform is really like, okay, how do I try to embody these principles? How do I live this life in real time? So that's essentially what I do. There are also, I have a Facebook group where like we can get together and have conversation. I have actually taken a year off. So in August, I will be technically relaunching my website as well as kind of relaunching my social media and everything like that. But on Monday mornings, kind of like to set the week, I talk about one of the principles or the Tepra and Maat that kind of guides Kemetic practitioners, and just what it looks like in real time, and just kind of share thoughts and holds space for people to kind of put their mind right at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of the day. And then on Thursdays, we have study session where we read various sources, and just kind of come together again, share space to educate ourselves and things like that. And then I also have kind of like a little marketplace where I sell digital books and just other tools for Kemetic practitioners on my website. So it's kind of a little bit of everything.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So,
So
should I jump in?
yeah, I was just gonna say, as always, when I have something concerning the Kemetic community, I always reach out to you and see if we can address it in some form or another. And a lot of the things that I was talking about, you didn't even realize what's going on. So we kind of decided to go in various directions. So would you care to tell the people what we getting into tonight?
Okay, so if you've ever seen me on Paradigm Shift in the past, I am not a person who stays on top of like YouTube debates, if you will. Like that's not my forte. It's not my vibe, to quote the young people. Is not quite for me. So a lot of times you will reach out to me and be like, they talking about this with Kemetic people and they saying that and blah, blah, blah. And I'll be sitting there like, no, oh my gosh. So I think more so the conversation, and I have heard this echoed amongst other people about the contemporary Kemetic legacy is seen as defunct. It is seen as not needed or necessary in the modern world. And there are a lot of criticisms coming from apologists, Christian apologists. There are a lot of criticisms coming from, how can I say, the conscious community. I'm going to put that in air quotations because that could mean a lot to people. So, I don't want to assume, so air quotations for that one, which is interesting because when I first became conscious back in like 2002, what it was back then is not what it is now. It has changed. And then I will even make the argument for the woke, like what the Gen Z equivalent of conscious was. That term has also been co-opted and just shifted from the original intention and the original holders of that. So I think I'm gonna stop there with that one.
Right. Don't get us in too much trouble.
I'm gonna try my best. I'm really gonna try my best because I have a lot of thoughts about certain things, and I know it's going to upset people, but I also, to be Ma'atic, I also have commentary for the Kemetic practitioners and Kemetic community in general also. So I represent Menyet. I don't, these are my thoughts, my observations. So I'm not going to claim to speak for the elders or other like shrines, temples, or anything like that. So, or groups. So I will try my best.
Gotcha. Hey, I mean, it got to be said. So,
I know
it is what it is.
I know. So, should I share the?
Would you like me to share it, or do you want to?
It doesn't matter either way.
Okay, you can try it, and if you have any issues, then I'll go ahead and share it for mine.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think I got it. Yes. Go me. All right. Can you see it? Is it up there? Yay. Okay. All right. So we're pretty much going to have we'll see how far we get, because I know oftentimes when I come on here, um, again, to quote the young people, I'm a yapper. I can go and and just share the thoughts and just keep going with it. So when we were discussing this, I figured, like, you know what, let's break it up into pieces, and hopefully that will get us a little more respectful of people's time and attention. So this is hopefully part one. Um, Talking about the power of living in Ma'at overall. And just in general, I am Sanette Mignette. You do not need to say my full and whole name. It is okay if you do not. Just Sanette Mignette is fine. So again, I'm a comedic practitioner and an educator. These are all my media or online outlets, if you will. So I just kind of wanted to set the stage for, like, okay, what is this conversation? Because I think, excuse me, a lot of times when I do decide to burden my ears, eyes, and mind with some of the things online, I noticed that there's never really quite an agenda, um, or the person presenting assumes that the audience already knows what they're talking about, which in some cases, yes. But again, I am an educator by trade. So I am used to, like, no, you have to make sure we are on at least understanding when I say this phrase or when I say this word, that this is the understanding. I'm not leaving it to the audience to assume that they understand what I'm talking about, because again, each of us has individual experience, background, etc. So again, I am definitely about that. So I want us to kind of just in general address issues and problems facing Americans, but I'm specifically focusing on African Americans, partially because a lot of the criticism comes from and is about and around African Americans. So that is why I kind of making sure I focus. And then yeah, I'll do that for that. So definitions and concepts. So talking about human needs, the function of societal pillars. I know I have said that each time, but again, I'm never going to assume that one person is watching each and everything. There might be new people. So I just kind of want to make sure that, you know, again, we're all on the same page. Culture, social constructs, racial minority development, logical fallacies, biases, propaganda and education, spirituality versus religion, identifying who exactly is the Kemetic community, because that gets thrown around a lot, and respectfully, disrespectfully, Maatically, some of the people who get lumped into the Kemetic community are not even Kemetic. So
Right.
it's
Right.
insane to me. And then going further than that, like deconstructing what a hotep is, or as I call them, aunus. So aunus are like people who steal a culture, kind of like we call them cultural vultures or cultural appropriators, things like that, versus Kemites. And then, and I know that's probably going to get some people like, wait a minute, but you, like, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Trust the process. And then why Ma'at ends Ma'at in 2024. And then that's where we're going to end today. And then next time we'll, you know, kind of get into other stuff. So I wanted to quote one of the wisdom texts. Now, again, to be fair, this comes out of Muata Ashby's book, and Muata Ashby's book doesn't necessarily always have where he gets the proverb from. So just putting it out there. So they who revere Ma'at are long-lived. They who are covetous have no tomb. So I wanted to start with that piece out of the wisdom text, simply because just going to the overall, like Ma'at is defunct, being Kemetic in 2024 is like irrelevant, like it doesn't do anything for the modern person. And again, I'm going to get into more detail the difference between Ma'at little m and Ma'at big M, who and what they are. But in general, the ancient Kemetic society, or the Kemetiu, their entire society was foundationally built on this principle. So whether it was government related, whether it was your everyday life, whether it was your personal worship beliefs, your morals, social mores, things like that. Everything was seen as being built upon this foundation of Ma'at, to the point where the various Neteru, or as we contemporarily call them, like deities or energies, depending on who you're talking to, they even were foundationally beholden to the principle of Ma'at, little m, or Ma'at, big M, the Netert. So that is just something that, if you revere Ma'at, if you follow these rules, or if you want to say like natural law, you're going to be, you're going to be long lived. You are going to be what's the word, in alignment, if you will. But those who are covetous, so if you are just picking and choosing and living day by day, YOLO, blah, 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 like, you will constantly be having issues, because some days you follow it, some days you don't, some days you take, sometimes you're all over the place. So you will never have, how you say, I don't necessarily want us to say like your quality of life, but in general, your legacy, if you will. If you, after you pass away, like when you say like you have no tomb, when you go to a tomb, it's someone that you want to go, you want to pay respect to. Like, that was a big deal in ancient times. Like, you never wanted, if anybody has ever seen the movie Coco, this is like a similar kind of concept, where it's like when people stop saying your name, you that's the last death. You want to be remembered. You want people to call your name. You want them to remember you, think kindly upon you, things like that. So if you are within Ma'at, you are treating people, you live your life a certain way, you are going to keep having people call your name. But if you are kind of like a jerk and you're not in accordance with these natural laws, who's going to come visit you? Who's going to burn a candle for you? Who's going to lay flowers at your grave? Who's going to do these things? Nobody's going to be there. And again, it's just that concept. So I wanted to just kind of start focusing our mind on exactly why we want to do that. So identifying the issues for African Americans. So according to the NAACP, the major issues for African Americans in 2020, well, technically it was 2023, but 2024 would be issues of racism, justice, education, innovation, like economics, health, well-being, and literally to take the time to look up all of the statistics in these various areas. Like, I'm going to break it down like further later on. Like today, I just wanted to kind of be like, these are the issues, and then, kind of give it specificity later. But I wanted to start with identifying the issues, because again, if we are saying like Ma'at is irrelevant, then it is my job as a Kemetic practitioner to say, well, no, that's not necessarily accurate, because look at how Ma'at can apply in these various situations. So put a pin in your mind in regards to these issues. We will be coming back to them between today, as well as more so the next presentation. But again, because it's all tied together. So you will notice that Menyet, I kind of really focus on sociology, psychology, behavior, things like that, to kind of lay part of this Ma'atic foundation. So one of the most widely accepted theories would be Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when we think about this psychological theory, it's just like, okay, we got our food, water, warmth, we have a place to lay our head, our safety needs, we have security, belongingness. So if a group of people are constantly in the lower end of Maslow, the idea of Ma'at isn't relevant. So this idea of self-actualization, your esteem, your prestige, and this, that, and the third, if you're constantly in the bottom, you can't necessarily worry about morals and values and who's going to lay flowers at your grave and things like that, because you're busy worrying about money, or you're busy worrying about being followed by the cops, or you're busy being like, you're worried about different things. So I think it's very valuable for us to understand that for a lot of people, they are in the basic needs area, And I think that is what people are trying to get at, that, oh, Ma'at isn't relevant. But again, I would challenge that the people who are saying these things, like, one, do they study and or live their life by Ma'at to be able to make that criticism? So because I like when you know the different principles, and again that'll be forthcoming, they definitely speak to these basic needs. They definitely speak to, you know, all of these various areas, because I mean, you know, I know a lot of people will talk, oh, ancient Kemet, and it was so, like, I was fussing, and somebody was talking about young Pharaoh, and like, oh, like, I like him and this, that, and the third, and oh gosh, grinds my gears. But there was this one video where he was just like, oh, and an ancient Kemet, like, you know, they didn't need money and economics because the streets were paved in gold and blah blah blah. And I'm like, why are we acting like there was no poverty and social strata and poor people in ancient Kemet? Like, that's weird. Have you never read a book? Like, why are we idealizing and making Kemet look like something it wasn't? And I also think that, like, that's part of the problem, that you know, we all kind of get this general education in the United States school system. Like, we learn ancient history, and you know, generally speaking, the ancient groups that are covered are just kind of like idealized. Like, you know, we make movies out of these ancient cultures. Like, we look to them as this like pinnacle of achievement and the wow factor of it. And when you kind of study a little more, you're like, no, they were people just like us, and they were, you know, doing funky stuff just like we do now. So
hold on, sis. So you trying to say ancient Kemet wasn't Wakanda?
First of all, you know, Wakanda's made by Marvel and Disney. I don't, you know, newsflash, it's not real. Like, that is a fantasy like, but I also, and I will even challenge, like, the idea of wanting a Wakanda is very Judeo-Christian. This idea of like, I want a paradise, I want this perfect place where everybody is like, that's not real on this physical plane with human beings. And again, natural law, like, if a volcano explodes, you know, and you die, like, that's just a thing. It happens. It's not a judgment. It's just, like, it just is what it is. So this idea that we want to idealize and just kind of gloss over and put on the cute fuzzy glasses about ancient Kemet, like, no, they had slaves, there was you know, there was negative stuff going on there were people, you know,
see, this is why our shows are 3 and 4 hours. Did you say ancient Kemet had slaves?
I know, and it's weird because a lot of people will be like, no, there was no slavery. Like, bro, what? Do you read books? Like, that's not real. That is not real. Like, out of the different what do you call it? Out of the different ancient and civilizations in antiquity, no slavery in Kemet ever, bro. I can't. But okay, you know, to each their own. If that's what all lies, I'm a liar.
Hey.
Okay. This is why I don't like doing those debate things, because that is a very immature reaction to disagreeing with a person. Slavery. Okay, so I'm going to continue. And Mr. Jallo, you got it. You can go ahead and you say what you want to say. But anyway, so again, this idea that Kemet was this perfect place is it's a fantasy. And yes, I understand, like, due to our contemporary conditions, we want to be able to look at a place and say like, oh, look at this is what we need to go back to, this is the way, you know, things should be, would be, we would be better off then. It's avoidant. It's running away from the reality of being a human being. So yes, the foundation was Ma'at, but again, people don't always live up to and execute Ma'at, just like saying I'm a liar, because that's not Ma'at either. So please don't do that. So we have choice. And that is, oh gosh, and I think it's the wisdom text of Ipu where essentially it's this story, and I have it in a book, and I was leaving this for like the next time, but from this wisdom text, essentially the story goes like they were talking, the main person Ipuwer was talking to one of the Necharu, and the Necharu basically said to them like, yes, we give you.
Don't worry about the chat. We can continue. I know it's hard. We just keep going.
Because it, you know what? And this is why I'm gonna get to what I'm gonna get to anyways, because of behavior like this. That kind of behavior is not Ma'atic either. But I digress. So essentially what the Necharu says is like, yes, the principles of Ma'at are there, but you know, it is up to people to actually follow it and live that into their lived experience. So thank you. It's because it's like you even interrupted me, like, bro, you ain't even let me cook. Like, you ain't even let me finish making the meal. All I'm doing is chopping. I ain't even put nothing in the pot yet. Like, but
shout out to my brother LP. Glad you watching, bro. I gotta get with you and see when we can get our joint in.
So anyway, getting back on task, this idea of Kemet being like this perfect place, like, because even if they, and I'm not saying they enslaved their others, I'm not saying that slavery was like it was here, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying even the idea of war and taking people as prisoners of war and forcing them into labor or putting them into a social status that would be, again, it existed. We like war was a very big thing back in Kemet. Like, people killed, yet the 42 say don't kill. Like, come on.
Like it's this. We can put it to bed like this.
Yeah.
Kemet not only they had 3 forms of what can be called slavery. You had forced labor. So when we say forced labor, we mean you got paid for your services, like the people who actually built the structures, whether it was the pyramids or the temples, etc. They were forced to do that. They were compensated for it, but they didn't have a choice but to do it. That's forced labor. Then you have, as you just stated, prisoners of war. When they went to war with people, they conquered those people and they took those people in as what we call prisoners of war. Not that's standard operating procedure when you go to war with another people, because if you don't do that, then it's more than likely you're going to be fighting those people again very soon. And then you have what we call indentured servitude, where someone would sell themselves to someone for a period of time and serve them for whatever that allotted time was, sometimes to get out of debt, sometimes that was how they fed their family, etc. It's not a big deal. It's, if we had another word for it, we would call it that, but slavery is an accurate description, and we can leave it at that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, and I think that that's part of the issue, and what I'm trying to get at later on when I say, like, when we're defining the Kemetic community, who and what is part of that. But I'll get back to you on that. So moving forward, so we have the hierarchy of needs. We have our individual needs. I need to have a place to live. I need to have food, water, sustenance, blah, 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 blah. Then, eventually I want to have esteem. I want to have respect. I want to, just kind of be able to maneuver through my society. So as we go through creation of societies, you will see different theories. Some theories say that there are 4 pillars. Some people say 5. Some people say 7. So again, depending on the theorist that you want to go with, I just included all of the 7 so that we can just be aware of them rather than me showing maybe just 4 or 5 and people like, wait a minute, but there are other ones. So the one that I'm concentrating on, though, is religion. So when we look at ancient societies, contemporary societies, things like that, there's always this element of religion. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a state religion. It could just be spiritual practice or organized spiritual practice. Different cultures are going to look different ways, depending on where you are in the world, what time period you're in, what the factors are that are going on during that time period. So the function of religion in general, and now I'm thinking like, did I write this on the next slide? I don't remember. So if I end up repeating myself, my bad. But the function of religion is essentially to kind of codify, these are our ethics, these are the morals, these are the social expectations of how we treat each other. Because again, if I'm an individual, I could do whatever I want, when I want, how I want, and I can be unchecked. So when we look at, let's say the 42 Tepra and Maat specifically, we were saying, okay, these 42 things. And again, depending on what literature you're reading and who it belongs to, that may look a little different, but the general gist is about the same. So the general gist is I will not be a man or woman of anger. I will not pry into matters to make mischief. I will not be an eavesdropper. I will not be overwhelmingly proud or seek distinctions. It says these things and we agree, okay, if we are going through life, this is kind of what we're going for. Now, again, the history of Kemet is thousands of years old. We got the ebb and flow. We have foreign influences. We got other stuff going on. But generally speaking, last I checked, human beings and ethics and morals and social expectations is still a thing. So the fact that we are taking one of the most, and again, whoever, depending on who you're talking to, or the oldest set of moral principles and saying, you know what, these things are still relevant. And we want to apply them to us now. How is that much different than Confucianism? How is that different than Taoism? How is that different than Buddhism, Hinduism? Voodoo, Santeria, or anything like that. So they pretty much just kind of unite us and say, or religion pretty much unites us and say, these are the expectations. So as part of religion or part of these pillars, we also have this idea of culture. So we have the custom arts, social institutions, how we treat people, how we treat people who are different than us, things like that, how we express ourselves artistically, how we express ourselves intellectually, all of these things. So that is also another piece where sometimes religion will influence or spirituality will influence the culture of a certain place. So, and again, there's a reason why I'm going over all of these things. So we can look at cultural relativism and cultural universalism, the idea that what is relevant to Menyet as an individual person who belongs to this specific Kemetic group over here. I can have my own beliefs and this, that, and a third, but my beliefs may not necessarily apply to another temple, another shrine, another group of people. So it's this idea that we can have this duality, and there is no such thing as one way. And actually that is quite, I don't want to say unique. It's not unique, but it is a very strong feature within just Kemet in general, where you had the different nomes, you had the different expressions of culture, you had the different expressions of religious belief or ritual and things like that. But you also had this idea that, like, okay, we're a united group. We all kind of agree that this is our foundation, but then where you go off of that foundation, so long as you generally kind of stay within these parameters, because, we don't want to say killing is good kind of a thing. So we now start to develop this culture for us to kind of, again, coexist and live amongst each other. And we do this in large ways and in small ways. So we can see this like in families, different morals and values and norms amongst, smaller groups. You can see it with friend groups. You can see it, like I said, it doesn't matter the size. So that moves, or I'm going to move on to like social construction. So this idea of, okay, as an individual, I could do whatever I want, when I want, how I want. But now that we are together in a group, part of developing culture, or part of developing like how and what religion and how it's executed, or spiritual systems and how they are executed, come about because of social construction, because human beings decide to come together and, okay, this is how we want to do it. So kind of like, when two people, and this is very idealized language, but when two people fall in love and love, marriage, baby carriage, and all that other stuff, I'm being facetious, but when two people just like decide that they're going to have a child, they will say like, oh, okay, these are the sports we want to put them in. These are the experiences we want them to have. These are the goals we want them to have educationally. These are like, you start to come up with, these are the parameters for this new child to be in this world. And that is a social construction. You are making that for your family. How are you going to teach about let's say race, or how are you going to teach about money? How are you going to teach about time? Being was the early is on time is late, and late is unforgivable. Like, but not everybody lives like that. So again, we have these variations. Like we have some universal things that, you got the law of nature or nature, you have Maat out there, but you can choose to not follow it, and you can choose to make social constructions such as slavery that goes against that. So moving forward, I also, and again, all of this is linked, so please stay with me. There's a reason why I'm doing all this. So I want to get and shift into racial and cultural minority identity development. So this is because of colonialism, because of post-Columbian slavery and things like that this is relevant. Because again, the idea of race was very different back then. The idea of, your ethnic group, your family group, that's more or less kind of like how you were identified, rather than like your skin color, your phenotype, etc. So I'm going to just stick this up there. But generally speaking, when we're looking at racial or cultural identity, the first step is conforming to the dominant culture. So, this is very easy. We watch TV, or, children watch TV. And like, I remember when the movie Frozen came out, and you have all these kids, like whatever their skin tone or culture is, they're singing Let It Go and wearing a practically powder white wig, kind of a thing. And it was sold in stores, and like, oh, it's just a movie. So they're conforming, but they're taking on certain, norms and ideas that is desirable. Like, this character is pretty and I want to be pretty. So therefore I'm going to now identify and conform to what the society, or what that movie or whatever media is that says is beautiful. So then next we have dissonance and appreciating. So generally speaking, when we have dissonance is kind of like, wait a minute, I'm being treated a little bit different. I think I might like being a little bit different. Like I like being me, but it's like when you start to kind of have this internal push pull between what's acceptable in society and then maybe where you are, depending on what one's racial and cultural ethnic background might be. And then we have resistance and immersion. So a lot of times, and please put an asterisk in your mind when on the dissonance, the resistance, and immersion, like those two specifically, especially when I get later on into kind of talking about who's in the Kemetic community and stuff like that. So resistance and immersion is you can tell a person is in that stage of identity because they use language, like very general language. All white people this, all Christians that. All Muslim people this, like, and it, you can just tell, like, anytime that they're, you know, just generalizing this group good, this group bad, this group perfect, this group not, you know, like that. A lot of times you will see, like, especially when it was COVID time and, you know, we had the Black Lives Matter movement, and then all of a sudden everybody's trying to wear dashikis and everybody is trying to wear their hair natural, and like that's immersion. So you're rejecting the dominant culture, you're very much generalizing. You will also hear like a lot of negative language about the dominant culture, as well as immersing oneself into what is perceived to be their own culture. And again, that might look like a lot of different things. So introspection is the next stage after that, where people essentially, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot there was one part. Resistance and immersion also has a lot of anger and fear associated with that specific area. Introspection has more so this idea of, okay, I'm mad. So like if you're thinking about like, okay, I'm trying to heal myself from my child's wounds and traumas. Like, you know, you get pissed at your parents, you get pissed that they treated you like this, or they didn't meet your needs or whatever. And you're angry and you cry and you punch and you hit and, you know, you do all those things that 3-year-olds do because, you know, inside we have our inner child and sometimes you need to, you know, you gotta let it out. So the introspection is more like, you have your feelings and your feelings are valid, but at the same time, I am now a 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old person, and it is no longer appropriate for me to just be angry. Doesn't mean that you cannot still exercise righteous anger or have boundaries and healthy things, but introspection is kind of like when a person finally decides to go to therapy and work through the anger and work through the emotions of it all. So, and some things will stay justifiably angry. Like that is a touchy thing. So for Menyet personally, when it comes to police brutality, it's something that is just sensitive to me. I have lost more than one family member to police violence in 2 different states. And it's very challenging for me to be able to I'm trying to think of the appropriate word, but it's just a challenge for me. I'll leave it at that. But at the same time,
to accept it as anything but, you know, brutality.
But it's challenging because at the end of the day, I can't live my life by being triggered every day. I can't teach children every day, and this is an everyday life thing. So if it's going to happen, I have to be able to think logically. I have to be able to respect my emotions, but also be able to have a logical and productive conversation with others instead of throwing a temper tantrum about it. So I think that is kind of where I go. And I also have to understand my own boundaries and limitations. Like, okay, because I'm not going to lie, I think it was when George Floyd happened, when he was killed, it was, I think, within a week of when my cousin was killed by NYPD. And I purposely, and I feel like I've told this story before, but I purposely avoided looking at that newspaper article because I didn't want to look up the police officers' names who were involved in his killing, because I know me and I'm going to like rabbit hole and deep dive. And, you know, I'm just going to be in resistance immersion. I'm just going to be in my feelings. And it's just like, man, yet are you built for that life? Are you really going to try to show up to these people's house? Like in my mind, my righteous anger, seeing what it did to my family, how it ripped the family apart, how like, yes, the resistance immersion would have me running up on people on site, like, you know, a reality TV show. But introspection is like, and it's definitely not no turn the other cheek. So don't get it twisted. I ain't turning not nary a eyelash. I'm not, no. But
I was telling some brothers earlier, I was like, hey, that's salute to the good book. But that part right there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, I didn't have a word for this or a term for this resistance immersion, but I had a friend at work, white coworker. We got kind of close. We got hired the same day. He had a son the same age as my son, but his son was biracial, black and white. And he was allowing other students to call him the N-word. And knowing how I am about, you know, being black and proud and being concerned about the plight of my people, he came to me like, man, I need some help with my son. And I'm like, what's up? And he told me what was going on. So I had my kids record messages to his son about why he should never accept that type of disrespect. I know I probably told this story several times as well. This same guy with the biracial son, his son's godfather, being a black man who was like an alderman in the city where he was from, makes a FedEx post with George Floyd's picture on it around Valentine's Day. And it's a meme of a card, Valentine's Day card, that says, "You take my breath away." And my cousin, he had been out with me and everything. You know, we went to the cigar bar and all of this, and he met my cousin. So my cousin texted me and was like, "Ain't this your boy?" And I'm like, "What?" And I lost it. Cursed him out. I sent it to my boss, all my coworkers. I'm like, this motherfucker. Like, I instantly got in my body. And I kind of regret it, but then I kind of don't. But needless to say, we was never, you know, the same. But he apologized. Like, I ain't talked to him for I just act like he wasn't there for about 3 weeks. And then he was salary at the job. And I walk up to the time clock and he just standing there crying. Like, "I'm sorry, I have a dark sense of humor and this and that." And I didn't want to hear it.
That's not dark humor.
Yeah, that's something else. So, but yeah, that and I feel like I was kind of in that, you know, in that situation. I just didn't have a term for it, because I'm still angry about it to this day. Like, why did I even start talking to him again, even though it was minimal communication? I still was like, why did I even start talking to that dude again? But anyway, I just wanted to share my little sidebar. I think about that even to this day. Like, I should have slapped him in his head. But
now, what would the 42 say about that?
I know.
I will not be a man or woman of anger. And then so the last area is integrative awareness. And again, this is for, you know, the United States, the UK, pretty much. It's a society that is not homogenous. It is a society that, you know, has many different groups and things like that. So the idea of integrative awareness is just like, okay, now how do we move on? How the hell do we get along with each other? How can we get along with each other? You know, and I would even say even if it is somewhat homogenous. So like within the Kemetic community, if we wanted to all get together, we all have different brands and ideas and execution of like what this should look like. So again, how do we get along without calling people liars? Just throwing that out there. So there are multiple.
We didn't skip introspection, did we?
You said what?
Did we skip introspection?
Did I? Oh, my bad. Hold on. No, that's the one where I said introspection is like when you mad at your parents and you like go to therapy, you try to make it make sense.
Okay.
So the next one we got crosses model or psychological of psychological negrescence. So this essentially is specifically for Black folks. So the last one is more like general. If you are Latine, or no, I'm saying, listen to me saying it wrong. Latin, if you are someone who is AAPI or something like that, like you can apply those things. Whereas this model is a little more specific for Black people, and I'm not going to take the time to like necessarily go through all of it, but it does have a lot of similarities for it. As it has a lot of similarities to the other model. A lot of them, you know, they're pretty similar overall. But as I was putting this together, I was like, you know what? There's also a white one. So like, how do white people learn how to be white? In, again, the United States, it's going to look like one thing, whereas in Europe, it looks very, very different. So like an example of that is one time I was traveling in Germany and I was in a store and it started raining and I went to buy a jacket. And this was, oh gosh, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but you know, police brutality, because it was happening for like a while before COVID. So it would just kind of like ebb and flow over and over again. So while I'm there and I'm there with my mother, and the gentleman who was at the cash register was like, oh, you know, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, we're visiting from the United States. Because, you know, when you're overseas, like you kind of don't really want to say you're from the United States because then you never know what that might unlock for people. But we were like, yeah, we're from the United States. And the gentleman, he was like, oh, I'm from Spain. So he was a Spaniard. And he was just like, why do the police keep killing your people in your country? Like, why do the police keep killing Black people? And this is, you know, by American terms, this is a white person.
Right.
And Spaniards had all kind of colonization and you know, slavery and stuff like that too. So, you know, it's again, that interesting thing of like how certain people learn their whiteness or their Blackness or, you know, whatever their experiences and where they are and how that's defined. So again, you have all of these different things. I'm not going to take the time because respectfully, that's not really like the population, but I did want to just put it out there so that people are aware, like there isn't just a model just for minorities, like there is also one for white folks. So I like this. Now I'm really just concentrating on this part over here. I'm not really concentrating on this because this is more so for therapists and like clinicians and stuff like that. And essentially how you can, if you are the same racial or ethnic group as your client versus if you are white and the other person is a different minority or ethnic group or what have you. So, and they just kind of show like how close or not close you get at the different stages. So again, conformity, pro-white, anti, you know, whoever your own group is, self-hatred, like those are the things that come up. I'm not going to talk too much caca, but I have one coworker and they grew up in a town 2 towns over from me. And anytime they talk about people of color, specifically Black people, it's always something bad. It's always something negative. It's always something, some kind of criticism and stuff like that. So if you know somebody like that, they're a stage 1, they're conforming. So the dissonance, resistance, again, anti-white, pro your own group. Notice again, there were different stages and things like that. So this specific graphic kind of condenses 2 and 3 from the one that I talked about. Then you have introspection. So you're starting to question your own group. You're starting to question the dominant group. You're starting to kind of go back and forth. So again, remember when I was saying, like, if you went to therapy for issues that you encountered with your parents, you start to say, well, okay, I was 7 years old. There was no way I'm responsible for that. So you can release it. You start to understand, oh my gosh, my mother or father grew up in a physically abusive household, they were never given the tools to be able to express themselves. They grew up in a household where, women were looked at this way, men were looked at that way, or certain groups, religious groups, were looked at this way versus that way. And, like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see, like, maybe the way I was raised isn't 100% great. Maybe what I had thought is not really as accepting, open, enlightened, whatever language you want to use. And you're just kind of trying to rectify that within yourself. And then again, integrative awareness, you accept yourself, you understand the pluses and the minuses, you understand the group you belong to and the pluses and the minuses, and you also understand the dominant group and the pluses and the minuses. And then depending on what situations you get in, you can use that knowledge to like help you best navigate around the different groups. So that's the function of it. All right. So getting into logical fallacies, I've talked about this a gajillion and one times. So I encourage you, please, as you listen to a lot of the debates, as you listen to a lot of the different people out there, please look into logical fallacies. Please look into propaganda tools. Please look into forms of bias, because that is a lot. I can't emphasize that enough. That is a lot of what is going on. And this isn't to say that Menyet doesn't have her own biases, because I'm a human being. Like, but I'm not going to sit here and try to deny. I'm not going to sit here, like I'm okay with saying like, yeah, I know I have bias, but if it is something that is getting in the way or not properly explaining or giving light or whatever, then, okay, let me re-examine. Let me have introspection around this bias. Is it useful? Should I be applying it now? Blah, 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 blah. So when you're seeing cognitive bias, you only notice things that confirm your beliefs. So if someone disagrees with you, you are on the attack. If someone says or expresses something differently than you. So for example, when we were talking about social construction and, gender. So I'm sorry, I'm stirring the pot in my own head. So when we're talking about gender, the way sociology explains why gender is a social construction. So this is not talking about sex. So sex is your biology, your DNA, your hormones. That is your sex. That is what you are born biologically as. That is not what gender is. Gender is talking about how you express or what values are given to what we may call male, female, or depending on what culture you're in, third spirit or what have you. So if I go to Japan, there are certain values that men have, and there are certain values that women have. And again, if we're in a place, whatever the gender is, blah, 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 blah. But so example, here in the United States, it is not considered masculine or manly gender wise. Like, men do not go to the club and dance with their friends, hold hands and hug. That is not something we do here in the United States.
Oh man.
Because that is not manly. But when I was in Ghana, and it was not homosexual, like they were not making, it was they're out with their friends dancing and having a good time, and it is just a circle of dudes. And that is no issue. It is very similar in India for men. Now, granted, we can start talking about patriarchy and all that other blah, 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 but I'm not going there. I'm not touching that.
Okay.
But it's the idea that that is also okay in India, where men I'm gonna say okay to that. But again, okay, so I can't help myself. I can't help myself. I know I said I was gonna try to be like with the time, but I can't help myself.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Don't worry about the chat. Don't worry about the chat. You're good. You're
Oh
good.
no, I'm saying it because it's this idea of that sex and gender are synonymous, and
Right.
and I, I I am challenged with that specifically, in that I am talking about how one expresses themselves. So I consider femininity, I put on makeup, I got my earrings on, I got my necklace on. Like that is how I am expressing my femininity, my womanhood. But there are plenty of videos on YouTube that say, oh, well, femininity in this country, your makeup's going to look like this. If you're in this country, your makeup's going to look like this. Or they'll do some of those things where it's like an artist thing, and where people compete, and it's like, what is the beauty standard for females or femininity in your culture? So when I read things like they were synonymous, that's why I was talking about cultural relativism, cultural universality. Like it doesn't look the same everywhere. And just because, like, I don't understand why, and feel free to explain why people are so hung up that sex and gender need to be the same. In that, and let me finish my sentence before y'all start on the keyboard. If we have what's the saying? If you knew better, you do better. If you have vocabulary to be a little more specific, to talk about and ferret out nuance. Why do we want to go back to black or white? Like why intellectually do we want to do that in a conversation? Why do we want to say it's all the same? It's all the same thing. What function does that serve?
You want me to tell you why?
I know why.
Because we want things to be simple, and we want it to stay the same as it always was. We don't want to evolve and change, and that's the problem.
That's death.
And anything that looks different is either offensive, scary, or something that we don't want any a part of, because we got to admit some things about ourselves that we're not comfortable with.
Last I checked, like my shoe size has changed.
Facts.
That is life. Growing is life. Like wanting things to stay the same. You want to wear the same drawers every day?
No, ma'am.
Where they do that at? You want to, you know what? I want to use the same soap that I used when I was 3 years old, because it reminds me of whatever. and then if they stop selling the soap, what, you gonna stop washing yourself? Like you like, there are plenty. What about your skin? What if you have eczema?
But see, and that's the thing.
Come on.
We say that about things that we don't like. Like we bring up, what was synonymous and things of that nature, when it's something that we're not really comfortable with not being synonymous anymore. But like, let's say we were talking about it being a historical fact, or being considered a historical fact, that Jesus is a historical person, however many years ago. It's a lot of people who wouldn't want to accept that, no matter what the criteria was, however many years ago. So it all depends on what we're talking about, because if it's something we're comfortable with, we want to evolve. When it's something we're not comfortable with, we want it to stay the same.
That's literally what is on the slide right there. Like, that's your confirmation bias, because your ego wants to be right. What is the function of being right? Like, what, and I get it. I do, because I understand, humans doing human things. But it's just And I saw what you did there with the Jesus being a historical person. You know, I ain't touching that. You know, I do not give Mary a crap about that at all.
I
But
know,
what I will say
I
are,
know.
who are the people trying to prove that? The
It,
people
it would, it wouldn't for you. It wouldn't for you. Trust me, it wouldn't for you.
No. But it's like, you think Taoists are caring about if Jesus was real? Like, only people who that they just want to confirm that my thing is right, and if I'm right, that makes you wrong. Like, okay, 3-year-old, like, please evolve. So when we get into these cognitive biases, there are multiple kinds. Again, you have confirmation bias that shows that you are correct. You have oh gosh, and I'm sorry because this is like so small and I don't have my glasses on. So please forgive me for not being able to read all of
You
these.
might be able to make it. Let me look at your.
Yeah, I don't know if I can zoom or anything like that, and I don't want to jack it up. So exit full screen, open speaker notes. No. All right, wait more. Yeah, no, it doesn't say anything about that. But this image is literally available on Google Images, so it's okay. But these are part of the things that, you know, again, and I'm about to kind of transition into kind of like the overall point and get out of, you know, definition land. But these are some of the things that, like, okay, if we are considering ourselves to be enlightened, woke, conscious, evolved, whatever vocabulary word you want to use in that way, we need to be concerned. Okay. Well, I don't know why I came back from the chat. Like, let me go back over to my little zone so I stop getting distracted. So, so blind spot.
Oh, sis, you can make that on your PowerPoint. You can. I can't make it bigger because mine is only view only. But on yours, you have let's see. Let me bring it back up. If you look right by, you know where the printer icon is.
Oh no, because I'm in presentation mode.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's all right. But if you look up like cognitive bias and then go into like Google Images, you could probably like bring it up on your computer and be able to see it better. So belief bias, you have blind spot bias. So if you remember years ago, Donald Rumsfeld was like, there are known knowns and then there are unknown unknowns, and we can't plan for the unknown unknowns. And it's just like, there are going to be things in this life that you are not all knowing. It's crazy. You know why? Because at 3 years old, you didn't know what you know now. And tomorrow you may not know, like you may know more than you know today. So, it's just this idea of like, again, are we exercising introspection as the Kemetic community, as the conscious community, as the woke community, as the human beings living on this earth in 2024? Because we understand that there's a lot out there and we want to, you know, just try to, I don't want to say understand what's going on, but be able to, again, best maneuver. So we got the cognitive biases. So I'm going to go over to this quote. So if everybody lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but rather that nobody believes anything any longer. And a people that no longer can believe anything cannot make up its mind. It is deprived not only of its capacity to act, but also of its capacity to think and to judge. And with such people, you can then do what you please. This is why all of this, I'm right, you're wrong, all of these back and forth, this is why I don't usually engage in stuff like that. Because, like, to go back to your example, to sit here and spend hours of my time and my life to defend and look up and say if Jesus was a historical figure or not, it's just like, again, if I am a biblical scholar, if I am a minister, if that is part of, that, fine. But to just get on the internet and argue and argue and argue and argue, it's a distraction. And a lot of the arguments are distractions out of ego and cattiness. They are, back to Maslow, our lower level of survival. If we want to put that in comedic instance, like if we were going to talk about the battle between Haru and Satek, like that is your lower self, that is your immature. If we're going to go psychology, that's your, what is it, id, ego, super ego. So like, well, it's not super ego, so that's your lower, immature, undeveloped self. And if some people, they want to capitalize and make money off of that, they want to participate in that because they haven't done introspection, they haven't developed their character, they haven't again, let me stay on task because I was about to go. So, and actually, no, I am about to go because this literally has to do with what I'm getting at. When we look at the average American, not even African American, the average American, there have been plenty of studies, and people be like, oh, and COVID and learning loss and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, we were already a while. We've been pretty bad. We've been down bad. So I remember years ago, I was listening to NPR and they were talking about understanding the educational level of Americans and being able to analyze that through past presidential speeches, specifically like the lexile, or like the language level, the vocabulary language levels, when I say lexile. So looking at speeches from the 30s, looking at speeches from the 50s, like you can see that the education was there due to the word choice, due to, and I'm not an English teacher, so forgive me. I know I'm going to probably use some wrong terminology here just because that's not my specific area, but metaphor, so on and so forth. Like their craft in the writing of the speeches, you can see the education level of the people. Now, I would generally, kind of challenge that in a way because, we had very low literacy levels. So I feel like it's the presidents were speaking to the upper class, the people who had the education to be able to understand and therefore make informed voting choices and policy choices and so on and so forth. So all of that is to say, at that time when I heard that radio program, they said the average American, given this analysis, the average American has a 9th grade education. So that is the equivalent of mentally being a 14-year-old. So according to the newer data, so we can look at the Program for International Assessment, like this is one of those things, and they look at all the way around the world as far as like what literacy is looking like. And it's kind of like the census. Every 10 years, they kind of like do this study. So 4 out of 5, 79% of Americans have English literacy skills sufficient to a level 2 or above. So like, middle of the road, not that bad. 1 out of 5, 21%, or 43 million people possess low literacy skills. This means these people are functionally illiterate. So, even though 4 out of 5, like, oh, okay, that's not that bad. So 26.5 million are level 1. And 8.4 million are below level 1. Now, this doesn't include people who are disabled. This doesn't include people who are English language learners. So people who come here and English isn't their first language. Like, this isn't even counting them. These are people who were born and raised in this country. So that's some of that data. And then I just kind of have like a little visual for that. So just kind of going forward, if we continue to like look at the numbers, and I'm like, I know it's somewhere in there, but I'm trying to like kind of hurry up a little bit. The average American now, their literacy level or their reading, their lexile level is a 6th grade. How old are people in 6th grade?
12.
So it's troubling that if the adults are at a 6th grade level of reading, and just because you read a lot, like, and I'm like hoping I get to this. So having low literacy leads to a lot of issues in general. Oh, wait, here it goes. 48 million adults in the United States cannot read above a 3rd grade level. 3rd grade.
Wow.
3rd grade. And this costs money because you can't properly fill out paperwork. You can't, like, can you do research to go to a doctor? Do you know what kind of doctor to go to? What, you go to a cardiologist. I feel like that one's easy, but like a obstetrician or whatever. Like, oh my gosh, what the heck is even that? Like, people can't even identify, like, I don't know, my thumb hurts. So if they can't have the proper vocabulary to express, this is the medical need that I have, or this is the kind of doctor I actually need, or how do I know which health insurance to choose? What is actually good for me? Because I don't know about any of y'all out there, but I know me, they just had us kind of redo our health insurance, and you get like this book that explains how to, like, all the benefits of this versus this. Like, it's not simplified. So then people just pick whatever's cheapest because they don't read. People sign up for social media things. People sign up and don't read. They don't take the time to do these things. So if we wanted to kind of go ahead, according to most recent data, this is 2023, New Mexico has the lowest literacy rate in the United States. California has 91% low literacy. Texas, Mississippi, which is kind of funny because Texas and Mississippi is lower than California. So, I mean, higher than California. Louisiana, New York, Florida, Georgia. These are the lowest the states with the lowest literacy. It's not North, it's not South, it's not Midwest. This is a nice mix. So if you have people who they're not on reading level. So if we want to talk about the youth, so we already know what it is for the adults. 17% of Black students, 21% of Latin students, they're lower than the national average. So it gets even worse. What does it say? According to 2022, 8% of Black, 18% of 3rd graders were reading proficiently at the end of 3rd grade. This means 92% of Black and 82% of Latino children are incapable of reading to learn and heading into the 4th grade. Now, specifically New Jersey, because we're up north, 39% of Black students throughout grades 3 to 11 tested proficient. 40%. So when we're sitting here and we're listening to these debates and listening to the vocabulary, or not vocabulary word, we're listening to people oversimplify things. We're listening to people confirm our biases, because nobody wants to think of them. No, who's going to admit that they can't read or that they don't understand vocabulary? Like, it's an ego thing. So again, when we're sitting here and we're calling each other liars, I understand the function, because we are preying and playing on the ignorance of our own community. And that's a problem. And that is a very big problem that I have with a lot of these online debate things, because they are just like, people want to complain about reality TV. They doing the same thing, putting on people who's cussing each other out, putting on people who will put each other down, who don't even, they call them debaters and don't even follow the rules of debate. There are actual formal rules of debate, and they don't even follow them. They interrupt each other. They overtalk them. They play to emotions. They use propaganda. They use bias. It's all of these things. And it's playing on the fact that people don't know that there's supposed to be rules to this, because, I want to be okay. I was raised this way and I turned out just fine. Like nobody wants to be like, yeah, I was raised this way and I'm not that great. There's I heard it was on TikTok the other day. This lady was just like, if you keep finding yourself in the same position and you're around dusty people, maybe you got a little bit dust in you.
Facts.
Maybe you got a little bit of low self-esteem in you. Maybe you maybe it's you. We don't want to do that. We want to sit here and talk about how great we are and how many books we read and argue with each other about caca. What are we really arguing about here? And what is the function of it? But it's like, you know, but and then it's like, but again, and we have this within our community, within anti-blackness, and I didn't put this in there, but it's just like, you don't want to be identified as, oh, well, you're just trying to be white because you're using this vocabulary, like, you know what I mean? So then we have that come into play, whether it be amongst adults, whether it be amongst children, like, you know, well, why are you reading all those white people books? Because, you know, white people did this and white people, so it's like, wait. So I shouldn't throw my educational net out there and read multiple sources to be able to compare and contrast and exercise critical and analytical thinking. I should only read books from people who look like me, think like me. This is why they banning and burning books around the country, because of that mentality, because I'm right, so you can't read that because this is a fact, because I said so. That's not what scholarship is. That's not what scholarship is. And as much as we want to criticize the system, as much as we want to criticize, you know, the powers that be, the dominant culture, whatever word you want to use, there are rules. There are socially constructed rules where it's like, you can't just get out there and say anything. You have to be checked by your peers. You have to, like, you can't just write a book, put it on Amazon and start selling it tomorrow. You can't do that, because people have to look at it. People have to question your source. People have to, that's the whole point of scholarship. So for when we get online and we're having conversations with each other, are they actually scholarly conversations? Are they actually debates? Or are we capitalizing on ignorance of our community? And are we trying to just make a quick buck off of it? Are we truly, because the idea, like, what people mostly have an issue with is schooling. Like, not education. They have a problem with the system. They have a problem with how it was set up. They have a system with an issue with how it affects and stifles people and stereotypes and different disenfranchises, all of these things. That's what they have problems with. So you attack the schooling, but to sit here and say, oh, well, I read 5,000 books, but do you have the critical thinking skills and do you have the academic prowess to stand criticism? Or are you going to be one of these folks? And I love and respect my brother, I do, but there's a certain, you already know who I'm talking about. You already know what I'm talking about. And it's just like, he knows what he's talking about for the most part. Like, he is, and I'll never take away, for people who are well read, that's an amazing and great thing. But when it comes to the analysis of it, because I remember that certain person who gets on a lot of lives and they will use very inflammatory language and call names and everything else, and they supposedly represent the Kemetic community, which they do not, but you know, whatever, because they don't even claim to be Kemetic, which is wild. But people always want to point to him and be like, oh, that's why, like, but he's not even Kemetic. Like, what? How you, what? Anyway, so he said to me one time, he's like, oh, Sanette, like, how you gonna have red hair? Because back in the day, blah, blah, blah. Any, like, people who were in Kemet, like, with red hair was considered to be, I think it was agents or priests of Satek, and, you know, he's evil, and he, you know, this, that, and the third, and blah, 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 and they were killed. So, like, it's crazy that you would walk around with red hair. And it's like, you know what's crazy? The fact that that specific nature was a benevolent deity and was considered the pinnacle of masculinity, and considered like he was gone to for thousands of years. Well, not that one. That's exaggerating. He was gone to for a good amount of time for people to have their marriages blessed under this specific Neteru. But because of politics in ancient times, and what do they say to I'm going to say it wrong. See, now I was on a roll and I messed it up. But to the winner, the spoils go, or whatever.
Yeah, the victor get to tell their version of the story.
Exactly. So yeah, you're able to kill all of these red-headed priests and say, oh, because they're associated with this evil one, and Asar is better. Like, no, at a certain time, Asar was just a footnote to a good amount of people in Kemet.
And we can't really use good and evil per se when we doing that compare and contrast anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about Ponytail, are you?
Stop talking to me.
Because that same individual was like telling me I shouldn't have facial hair.
Yeah. But again, and this is why I'm like, that's the difference between well-read and then, okay, how do I apply this in real time? Like, okay, now you're using this information to put people down. Is that what we doing? Like, is that is that why you're learning all of this? Is that why you read all these thousands of books? To serve your own ego and to fill your pockets? That's not it. That's not what the Kemetic legacy is about. So anyway, I'm gonna move ahead. So I'm gonna finish on this last point, and then I'm gonna kind of start to round us out.
Okay.
For today. So the illusion of truth effect. So this was said by Goebbels. Repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth. And Goebbels was like so well known throughout Nazi Germany. Like, he was the minister of propaganda and everything like that. So advertising uses this. If we just repeat it enough times, if we put it on TV enough times, people are going to start buying our product, or they're going to start repeating this. How many times, like, you learn lyrics to a song because you listen to it enough. You start to adopt a certain mentality, or you start to adopt certain things because you hear it a lot. So it's just one of those things. So when we're talking about repetition, makes information appear truer because you hear it. It's familiar. You're used to it. You've seen it. Again, it goes into the area of appealing to human bias. So if you're hearing a bunch of people online say, oh, well, Christianity is X, Y, and Z, but what we have over here is better because that group over there did that. And every debate is doing the same thing and regurgitating the same talking points and using the same sources over and over again and the same 3 books and the same 3 scholars. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're using the same tools. And again, I am worried about this as a practitioner, because these techniques are being used to represent a community that is like, we don't even talk like that. We don't move like that. Like, there's no reason to go on the internet. And even still, because some people will make the argument, be like, oh no, I need to go on there because they're attacking us. Like, did they come to my house? Did they stop my paycheck? Did they steal money out of my account? Did they slap me? Did they slap my mom? Like, they talking caca on the internet. Like, and I get it, because again, if they repeat caca enough, you don't want people to think that about you, and this, that, and the third. But it's like, now you got priests and you've got people out here talking about, like, we're defending the honor, and then feeding into the capitalist propaganda and all these other.
If you remember, though, when we did the show addressing things that were said about the Kemetic tradition, it was like they weren't even talking about the Kemetic tradition.
No,
they was
talking about people like Young Pharaoh, or what's his name, Sutan Seti, or all these people who be on a certain YouTube channel.
Yeah,
and we all know if you haven't, if y'all can't see my facial expressions, I have my certain feelings, but you know, I can't stop people from wanting to make money. Anyway, all right. So, when we're talking about propaganda, and again, this is just for the edification in general of to be able to recognize, and this is a very limited list. There are way more tools, but huffing, exaggerating with meaningless or unsubstantiated terms. I hear that a lot. Oh, these people think they're Egyptians. Like,
Oh man.
when did I ever say I was Egyptian? When
Hey,
did
let me
I
tell
say
you something. Let me
like,
tell you something. I gotta tell you about this.
uh-oh.
And this man is my bro. This my man. I had a whole hour-long argument about you thinking you were Egyptian. Because of course we had the show coming up. So I'm like, yeah, man, sis got the show coming up. You know, she been on the channel. Yeah, she thinks she Egyptian. Wait, what? She ain't never said that.
No.
And I'm like, why am I arguing about something she's never said this? And I'm like, you know what? I'm not. This is, I kid you not, an hour-long argument. And I'm like, all right, this is crazy. She has never made this claim, and the argument is because of your chosen spiritual tradition that automatically makes you make that claim. That's the only thing, because Kemet is a place name. So, because I said, if you're a Buddhist, are you Indian? Are you saying that you're Indian? It's not the same, because Buddhism is not a place name. And I'm like, I don't know I don't know anybody that I engage with that make the claim that they come from ancient Kemet.
Not one.
Now, you know, I've heard a few people, you know, make some assertions, but I'm just like, the sister never said that. And it, like I said, it was an hour-long situation.
And you know what, you could have went out and had a really good meal instead of wasting an hour on caca.
Yeah. And that's like,
and you know what's
but
crazy?
it kind of caught me off guard.
You know what's crazy though? But did he say it to me though? Did he reach out into my DMs and say something? If you got a problem with me, but he could come talk to you about it. He could come talk to you, like, but you got a problem with me, and you was gonna talk to other people and try to put words in my mouth and like.
Hey, that Jersey accent came out right for like 10 seconds. Kid you not.
Okay, professional. Let me stop. But it's wild that, you know, these things are these propaganda tools are being made all the time, where it's like, oh well, they all this and they all that. But you know what's crazy? I had never seen one of y'all come to a holiday. I had never seen one of y'all come to a communion. I ain't never seen one of y'all come to an ascension. I've never seen you, but so you checking for me and you trying to check me and tell me what I am, who I am, what I believe, and you don't even engage or try to have a conversation. But you could talk to other people about me. And when I say me, I'm not necessarily just saying me personally, but me and people who are actually about the Kemetic legacy and living the Kemetic legacy, not people who get online and go, because, like, and all that, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get to that in a second, because that's definitely in there. So incomplete comparison. So lacking necessary information. So a lot of these people making these claims, like, they are going to say, yeah, I don't know who the he is. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't need to know everything.
Who said,
but it's like the various people will, and again, I'm trying very hard, because there's a certain online individual who has a certain reputation for being disrespectful and showing their hind parts. So I will not name that specific person, but they have a platform that occasionally you know, because their whole shtick is, oh, Christianity is real and this is why we're dope and blah, 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 you know, Christian superiority. So, you know, he trying to live that life. But then every now and then, and I only know this because you send me the video, because I'd be like, well, what are they, what's the accusation? And then I hear it and you're like, yeah, these people this and these people that. And I'm like, you know, you literally, the only person I know that you know, and all due respect to that person has a very mixed spiritual belief system that isn't even purely Kemetic. So it's wild that you would say that, and that's your only point of reference.
Mm.
And yes, Christians can rock. There is no, when they doing their thing, y'all go ahead and you do your thing, because it ain't got nothing to do with me, respectfully. So long as y'all respect me and stay over there and don't try to push your stuff on me, I'm good. So anyway, so inconsistent comparison. So one thing I will notice is sometimes the conscious community, the Kemetic community, the woke community, like it all kind of turns into a big mush of stuff. And these are very different groups and camps. Like, you know, maybe we're all living on the same block, we live in the same town,
Right.
but we are not all the same people. And there are some people who dip and dabble over here, dip and dabble over there. They may cosplay as Kemetic, because that's a lot of things that I see. There's a lot of people who their system is not necessarily in alignment, but you know, they will wear the jewelry, they will, you know, and you know what, let me shut up because I'm jumping ahead. So
Yeah,
we got ad nauseam.
Y'all better chill out, because y'all bringing that New Jersey out. I done heard that accent pop out about 3 times now. Y'all, look, get out my chat.
So ad nauseum. So the idea, like, again, they're just repeating it to the point where it's like, shut up. Like, the point has been made. You're beating a dead horse, if you will. Agenda setting. So that is a lot of times what I will see online. Well, they'll say, oh, well, you know, the Kemites are doing this, or the Kemites are doing that, or they will go speak to Elder Baba Haru, and you know, Baba speaks for a good amount of people, but he is not the be all end all sole person, you know. And I say this in the most respectful way, like, he is not a Nasut, he is an elder. And because of his action and because of, you know, his work, we were able to kind of continue reconstructing, because again, people like to compare us, and I've said this in other shows, where the Kemetic legacy is not that old, and it is still being formed, it is still being figured out, it is not formalized or anything. So for you to say, oh, well, this is what they believe, and then you don't speak to people, and you're setting the agenda to make it look a certain way that's not true. And then appealing to prejudice. So you appeal to Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic thought because that's what a lot of people are familiar with, or that is where their spiritual and religious trauma lies, and you're able to take advantage of that spiritual and religious trauma. I was speaking to a person online, which I'm like, I hope in a way they're not watching, because I want to be nice, because, you know, you understand people are at different places. We're not all on the same wavelength all the time. And I mean, this person was the hello celestial star being queen of the this and the that. And I'm like, bro, stop.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was, and I'm this and I'm that and I know this and I know that and blah blah blah. It was that kind of. People would categorize that as a hotep. I'm not gonna lie, that's an Aunu. Like, that's yeah, nah, bro. But the person was basically saying, like, yeah, I always knew that Christianity, like, it just never sat right with me and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, well, you know, that's unfortunate. Like, and in my mind, I'm like, bro, you need to go to therapy. But like, you got to work that out. But for me, like, growing up, I did grow up a Christian, and I do have that is the background through different denominations. But when I think about it, it's like I had questions, I had certain experiences, but I've met some beautiful and wonderful people who are more devout and more charitable and kind and you know, and that just so happens to be their faith. So I don't have that religious trauma or spiritual trauma that other people have. So I can't speak to that. And I think there's a lot of that within the mishmash that people try to pretend is Kemetic, because that's not us. Like that is not, that doesn't even make any sense for Kemetic people to be operating from that type of a place. And I'll show why in a moment, but that's trauma. And people need to really deal with that, and to be putting that out there as though that is what the Kemetic community is about, and talking caca on Christians and talking caca on Islam and all these other groups. Like those are just a bunch of people who got something to prove, who want to make a dollar, who, you know, want to be heard. You know, maybe people didn't listen to them enough and they just want that ego boost, like whatever. It's not for me to try to, you know, make it make sense, because I can't relate. So other propaganda methods, black and white, it's either this or that. Being Kemetic is how can I put it? It is the multiverse. So it isn't just multiple aspects on this plane. It is like, if you're into Marvel, it is like the multiverse. Like it is so individualized. Of an experience and things like that. Again, the social construction says these are the parameters that we kind of stick into and abide by. But generally speaking, like it is very personalized, and that is very different from a lot of the Abrahamic ways of doing things. Like, excuse me, that is not our mindset, if you will. Common man. So common man generally kind of talks about like, or this propaganda tool is like, you know, the guy on the street, the person you can relate to. So it kind of goes into that confirmation bias of like, oh, this person's like me. They have same experiences like me. Like, oh, they got in trouble at school and I got in trouble in school. So therefore, you know, I have, like, it's like you bond with them over like sometimes good things and sometimes negative things. You know, it can depend. Demonizing the enemy. So one, I don't know why Kemetic people are anybody's enemies, because the people who started a lot of this caca, except for one person who I'm not going to name, who's now engaged in stuff that, you know, you do what you do. But I don't think it's helpful. You know, like the people who started a lot of this stuff are not Kemetic people. And I've said that before. Demoralizing. So, you know, a lot of times one criticism I will hear is like, oh, Kemetic people, they're all about like looking good. So a lot of that comes from Baba Haru. If you've ever met him, he is very, I hate to get into astrology, but if you know anything about astrology, the archetype of a Leo, Baba Haru is a Leo, up, down, around, and down the street. And that's his personality. You know, the jewelry.
I'm confused now because, like, I love my jewelry. I gotta be groomed, and like, if my head ain't shaved, I don't want to leave the house. It's weird because it's like it's almost like a obsessive compulsive type of thing. But why is that a bad thing though?
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Not you, but the criticism is what I mean. Like, I don't understand that criticism.
Oh, I mean, so basically they're saying we're all about appearances and not depth. That's essentially what they're driving at. Okay. That, you know, we wear all the jewelry and we wear the whites, and, you know, we have all, you know, we present really well, but then we're not some
style over substance, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know why that word wasn't coming out. It's getting late. So again, it's that idea of like, you know, you have to find some type of problem or issue, divide and rule. They believe this, they do that, like, you know, that kind of thing. Firehouse of falsehood. So this one is one of my favorite ones because it's a Russian propaganda tool. And essentially what it is And you'll see it a lot now during like contemporary politics. You'll hear it a lot where it's like, well, you weren't there, so you don't know. There's no way for us to know, so you don't know. So it's like it's casting this doubt because you simply were not there. And a lot of times people will say, well, like I got into one lady with one time with this lady because she was just like, oh, well, you know, the Seshmeru Netra or the Rani Kemet, like, so like the language of ancient Kemet, the as you would say now hieroglyphics, like you can't decipher what it is and what it means because nobody speaks that anymore. And I'm like, that don't even make no sense, sis. Like, that's what linguists do. Like, that's their whole area. Like, and plenty of, like, maybe we don't have it at 100%, and it is an ongoing, you know, thing that is revealing itself, you know, through scholarship and research and so on and so forth. But it's not something that just because you weren't there or just because you have ignorance around a certain topic does not necessarily automatically mean that there's nothing of value, or it's nothing that you shouldn't be paying attention to or learn more about. And I think that's very dangerous, where it's just like, oh, well, you weren't there, you don't even really know what happens. Like, people who actually be there don't even all the time really know what happens, because human bias says my experience and interpretation of what my eyeballs see, or what my color blindness experiences, or what my auditory hallucinations may experience. Like, you're doing a lot here. You're grabbing a lot, and you know, it's inaccurate and it's disingenuous. And I feel like a lot of people do utilize that firehouse of falsehood like ridiculously a lot. Framing. So framing has a lot to do, or is very similar to like setting the agenda, putting the parameters. Kemetic people are this, they do this, and staying within those bounds, kind of a thing, to like just drive that point home. Intentional vagueness. I think that's like pretty obvious. And I have practiced this word so many times, and I hope I say it right. So obfuscation. I still said it wrong. That's okay. You know who knows how to say it? Google when you press the little speaker. So feel free, go look it up. It can pronounce it correctly. So the action of making something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. So I think a lot of people also do that, where and the video you specifically sent me, that's what that specific person did. And they were like, well, that person has to be wrong because you can't even properly see, and blah, blah, blah. And look at the angle of this. And, you know, and sometimes a lot of when they use that, you know how some people be like, oh my God, that's deep. And then when you say, well, what was it about? And they're like, I really don't know. And it's like, sometimes folks go into it where they just, again, they want that ego boost of, I'm smart, I know all these random little details and other people don't know them. So, you know, it's positioning and posturing. I'll loosely say intellectually posturing oneself. So this brings me, so all of these definitions bring me to this point. Menyet, and only Menyet. Because nobody, if it don't apply, let it fly, kind of a thing. Because
the views and opinions of Menyet, or the views and opinions of Menyet.
Yes, because I just don't want it to be like kind of a thing. So there are factions, and this is just something I kind of mapped out in my head. But you will see like the Black practitioner, the people who go to the spiritual houses and stuff like that, there is definitely major segregation when it comes to the Black practitioners, and then the European pagans, or the European Kemetic Orthodox folks. And I bring that up because I remember, I don't want to say I got into it, I didn't get into it, but there was an accusation made by somebody in the comments that was saying like, oh yeah, these people, their king, or like their god is this fat white woman. And I'm just like, beloved, that's how I know you don't have any contact with actual practicing Kemetic people, because if you're around a lot of the Black practitioners, whether it be here, the UK, I can't really speak for Brazil. I really am not sure what that community looks like all that much. But there is a lot of segregation in that way, which is unfortunate in some ways, because in some ways you do want safe space for your spiritual and religious practice, and you just don't want to deal with certain things that might come up because of race. But because of that separation and isolation, there are a lot of understandings, reconstructions, literature that a lot of the Black practitioner and spiritual people are not even engaging with, simply because it comes from Kemetic orthodoxy. And if you read anything from, I don't even know how to say her name properly, Sudia, because I literally have the computer on top of her book. She says in a lot of her literature, like, Kemeticism is like Kemetic orthodoxy. This is an African thing. This is from the continent of Africa. Like, she gives her flowers. She is very clear. She does not whitewash anything outside of just her followers, maybe how they take it or interpret it or whatever. But it's very, very well researched information. Her interpretation, especially compared, like if people want to say, oh no, because you have that racialized element, or you have that Abrahamic element put on Kemeticism from European scholars, with her, if I was to make an argument, she would be, if not the only one, or it's very minimal with her. Now, it's definitely out there with a lot of other authors, but with her, like, she is very conservative. I'll put it that way. She's also very 2024, so the whole gender thing might make people uncomfortable. They're very fluid with that piece. But for the rest of their scholarship, like, she is on point with a lot of stuff. And again, if it applies, cool. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Now, when it comes to Black practitioners, unfortunately, a lot of what I see and what I experience comes from a place of Americanness. So, like, when it comes to African Americans, and I can really only kind of speak to that, or Black people in the United States, trying to practice Kemeticism, you will see a lot of American thought brought into it, which it shouldn't. So this gets to one of the criticisms that some people have, where it's like, oh, where is it? Because I made notes on this.
Yeah, and if I may, I know for a fact that you're 100% correct on the orthodoxy. I can't say her name, but she definitely acknowledged that paradigm comes from Africa. I remember during the height of like Black Lives Matter and the police protests, with the Mike Brown thing happening here in St. Louis, I remember seeing her post, because I followed them. And she was like, we should join our brothers and sisters, the Netter, or African deities, etc. Like, it was a post on their page where she said that.
Yeah. So, and it's just like, people will just make fun of her and say, oh, she's overweight. Oh, she's a woman. Oh, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, but do you actually read any of her stuff? Like, do you? Because if you've read anything or taken classes with them or anything like that, they give a lot of respect to, again, Africanness. And there's even one piece where it says, like, she has studied with different African like spiritual systems to help her to understand within her writing and giving her context. Like she is literate, quite literate, ridiculously literate in not only the various forms of Sashmeru Necher, but she can read in Coptic too. Like, so she can actually read the documents. And then she specifically goes out and tries to gather the cultural competence and understand, like, oh, okay, how can I make this make sense when I'm doing my writings and presenting this to my community? So I think, and she goes above and beyond to try to really do it justice and stuff like that. But again, people are just going to concentrate on, she's white, she's a woman, what does she know? She's not us. She's, she just gets lumped in. And that's why I wanted to bring up that whole resistance immersion and everything else like that, because that's getting in the way. Like, if we want the Kemetic legacy, and this is just Menyet getting on a little soapbox here, but if one is interested in the Kemetic legacy, and like if they wanted to engage in evangelism, or just because I don't have a different word for that, so forgive me, but like getting out there and spreading the word, her material is pretty decent, and the other, like I said, a lot of people within the Black spiritual houses, and I'm not saying like leadership wise, because there are a lot of them that are very, very, very well read, very, very, like, all of that, but a lot of the people are stuck in that minority development area where they resist because of history and the past, and they just don't want to accept that, and not for nothing, white folks and white scholarship has been studying Kemet way longer. So why are we reinventing the wheel? Like, it doesn't mean you need to accept and everything that's being said, or maintain the same interpretations, but you totally refuse to even read the books just because it's white folks who read it. And then I look at a lot of and again, this is no shade, but it's like, but then I can look at Sudhia's books or Kemetic Orthodoxy books, and then I can put that against and forgiveness to the elder, because I appreciate the work that he's done. But I can look at Muada Ashby's books, and Muada Ashby adds in a whole bunch of Hinduism stuff, a whole bunch of, like, if I'm not mistaken, like Taoism. Like, he puts in a lot of Asian stuff that's just like, and again, I understand synchronicity, but why do that when you could just read the documents and put it out there? Like, it's weird that we're amalgamating in that way, and not even just amalgamating, but putting it in a way that's your primary thing. What you're putting out. It's not even interpretation, or later on, let's look at the synchronicity. Like, that's your primary documentation in every one of his books.
Yeah. When I hear people be like, and they say that they Kemetic, or something akin to somewhere in that wheelhouse, and they'll say something like my chakra, or I'm like, huh? Because and no, I'm not knocking it. It's just I didn't know that was a facet of, you know what I mean? I'm like,
I know
what?
exactly what you mean, and do honor for the creativity of our people, because for a long time we weren't allowed to read the books, we weren't allowed to read the manuscripts, we weren't allowed to attend the classes or scholarship and things like that. So because of culture, and again, this is why I laid that certain foundation. Because of that, we got creative with certain things. But now it's 2024. And we can correct the things of our ancestors, or not ancestors, of our elders. Our elders did what they could with what they had.
And Yame, I appreciate it, bro. I wish you would have hit the sister. I got her Cash App going at the bottom. So if you still got anything to spare, hit the sister Cash App. But I definitely appreciate it.
I'm just sitting here like, but it's that is something else within Black practitioners, where we have our elders, and we need to take care of our elders, because again, they laid the way. I will not lay to waste the plowed land. So Baba Heru, Mfudishi, Queen Afua, Muada Ashby, Raun Neframen, like they did what they could with what they had. But now in 2024, we still got people repeating and parroting, not even necessarily repeating, just parroting, because, you know, did they actually read the work, or did they watch a video about somebody else who did the work of reading the book? And they will, you know, just keep repeating the same points. And again, respectfully, our elders lived at a time of extreme educational schooling segregation. A lot of them are self-taught, which again is no problem with being self-taught, but being self-taught does have its limitations, because you're not in discourse with other people about these things. It's just you and your ideas flying out there. And in 2024, so many people are afraid to not challenge it in like a disrespectful way, but just say, hey, you know what? Just like I gave with the example, like, yo, my parents did certain things to me that didn't meet my needs, that I found to be a little emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, And I'm not saying that the elders, the Kemetic elders, are being abusive, but it's just the idea of like recognizing that they're where they were again. And this is why I have that that model up there, or that theory up there, so that we can look at that. Like, no, we need to go back and say, hey, these elders were reading scholarship from, you know, like a long time ago. And there has been a plethora of information that has come out since then. But rather than building on that, we just keep repeating the same talking points from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Like, there's no growth. It's stagnant. It is death. Like, I don't understand why we continue to do that. And again, then people are given the platform to be able to just continue these same talking points. And that's one of the things that, you know, as the Black practitioners, that is one of my strongest criticisms. And that's another, like, I know Shaka Amos made a similar, not quite similar, but he kind of, you know, was getting at the same thing, where, or like when people will say, oh, well, you know, you all look good, but you don't have the substance, the style over substance. And that's partially because a lot of people are reading secondary sources, amalgamated sources, because they simply refuse to read anything written by white people. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't, but how many of us are going to learn under Dr. Raketti? And she is still here, and she can speak to how challenging it was for her to learn Seshmeru Necher and get access to certain documents as a Black woman at the time period, and this, that, and the third. Like, how many of us are trying to work with our elders and kind of make the appropriate changes or updates that need to be made, but instead we're arguing about if Jesus is real. Like, for why? Why would we waste our time doing these things? So so that's my at least for the left side. So the right side, factions who are perceived to be Kemetic community. So Kemetic people oftentimes will be associated, especially with the people in the first bullet. So the culture vulture capitalists, the people who they follow the podcast formula, where I'm going to go on there and I'm going to tell people that, you know, I'm the one with the truth, and you got to listen to me because you want to keep your audience. And they have sound bites, and, you know, they use propaganda and all that because they want that engagement. And, you know, I get it, because people, you know, we live in the society where you gotta, you know, sometimes not you gotta, you don't gotta, but where many people feel like they don't really have a choice, and they feel like sometimes they need to compromise their morals, values, ethics, to make money. And a lot of times we will see that. We will also see, I call them the YouTube researchers. I know they're supposed to be like scholars or debaters. And again, that is why I brought up the thing about literacy levels and, not really being able to stand against scholarly critique and feedback, feeding into ego, feeding into ignorance, feeding into lower levels of discourse, if you will. I generally call it battle rap, like conscious battle rap. It's how can I diss you and make you look bad and get people to give me money for making you look bad? Like that's what it is a lot of the time. And then we're getting to, and I didn't put it in there, but the Hoteps, aka the Aunu. So a lot of people within the Kemetic community, if you call them a Hotep, like that, it is super offensive. Like especially now, that is considered negative. So a Hotep, and for people who don't know the history behind it, so it came out because of, if I'm not mistaken, an article written by The Root, essentially just kind of coining the term. And again, this is because, Hotep, sister, Hotep, or Hetep, depending on how you want to throw that vowel in there.
Hotep, queen.
Yeah. So, and there are plenty of memes that are actually quite hilarious out there. But it's this idea that these are people who listen to a lot of these podcasty YouTube researcher folks. It very much doesn't have a lot to do with scholarship. Sometimes it's just I know this information because I'm cool and I want you to think I'm cool. Like they use it, try to parlay that to be like some sort of look, I'm smart, I know something you don't know kind of thing. And it's horrible because a lot of the time it's misinformation, disinformation, it's amalgamated information, but they parade it around like, oh, this is a fact. Like, okay, a fact according to whom? When? For what purpose? Like none of those questions are really necessarily okay. So I'm not talking about Christians at all. I'm only talking about, this is what I see. It's a bunch of people who go on a channel. And they started out in Harlem, if I'm not mistaken, on 125th. And it was kind of like a man on the street kind of thing. And then it had evolved because they found out they could make money doing it. And it was this whole thing. And again, I understand the thrust and the push out of the 70s and the 80s, where it's just like, you wanted to have pride, and Afrocentricity was a thing of that time period. And people wanted to have more authentic expressions spiritually. So a lot of the talking points of that time period was Christianity bad because slavery, therefore F that and be free. How you gonna liberate people and then give them no direction? How are you gonna liberate people who don't even have, like, you don't replace it, you don't give them suggestions, or you give them suggestions, but and this is a criticism of the Black Kemetic folks. A lot of the elders had that mindset where it was like, okay, well, so long as you're not doing Christianity and you're trying to do the African thing, and go to Kemet because Kemet is the oldest, or it is such a good example. And this is, again, one of those criticisms, like, oh, they think they're Egyptians. Like, no, nobody said we're Egypt. Like, that's weird. I was born in New Jersey. My ethnicity is not specifically from there. But when you look at it, the whole idea of Kemet is because there's a plethora of information since the 1800s. You can find books. You could read Budge, you could read Faulkner, there are plenty of books out there, and they're generally cheap and easily accessible. Many libraries have them. So it was easy. It was an easy fix at the time to refer people to Kemet and to make it a point and place of pride. Look at this place in Africa. That's something we can feel proud about, because again, we're coming, this is the 70s, the later on the 80s, and so on and so forth. So like, this is why that ended up happening. But then it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now I'm going to leave this oppressive thing that you're telling me is oppressive via, because of Christianity. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to read these books. And now what? There was no bigger picture. Like, the idea of liberation is kind of like, if you're a farmer, you can open the gate and you can let all the animals run. But and not to call ourselves animals, I'm sorry, like I just caught that. I was like, wait a minute, why am I making that comparison? But anyway, but it's just like, you can also let them roam free, but keep, kind of like, again, the social construction, the idea of these are our boundaries. So you can have a huge wide field. You don't have to keep them in the pen, but now you took us out of the pen. And we're like, yes, this is great. Jumping off the cliff. Oh, crap. What am I doing? You're like, so now everybody is everywhere and they think I've arrived. And meanwhile, what did it get us? This is why that criticism exists. It's defunct. It's irrelevant, because the execution, because there was no wider, bigger plan. And I can't be mad at our elders for it, because how were they supposed to? No, they were just trying to, liberate them. They were trying. They were coming from a good place.
I'm just curious, and I know, we pressing for time because we didn't want this to be one of our marathon joints. But I'm gonna have to get with Mugabe, aka Little Lucifer, in the back chat, because I just want to know where is he hearing the Christianity? I don't understand that's because one thing I don't think anybody can accuse you of is being subjective about what you represent. So I just want to know where he hearing something other than what you're saying. But me and him, we'll talk about it.
Oh, so maybe I just didn't interpret it in that way. If I'm not mistaken, at the time when it was posted, I was talking about the people in the debates and how they.
So he was saying that's where he heard from.
Yeah, I think
that's
what he was saying. Like, I didn't take that as he was saying that about what I was saying. But
got you. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, correct. And let me know if I'm incorrect, Mugabe.
But because these channels, they want people on there to be inflammatory. They want people to be on there to get them an audience. They want people to be on there, to kind of further that agenda, or, whatever it is they're trying to do. They will continue to get and attract these quote unquote hoteps and, or the Aunu. And a lot of it is because of a lack of discipline. Being Kemetic is a very disciplined, it's very conservative. So that's why I say these people are not Kemetic, because I can sit here and say, oh, well, you break the 42 here, break the 42 there, blah, blah, blah. Like, I could do that all day. That's easy. But at the end of the day, we all break at least one, because we're humans and that's just what we do. But, and the idea of Maat is like, you want to be balanced with it. You don't want to be too far over here, too far over there. But the idea of these people is just like, again, shooting fish in a barrel. I don't want to necessarily say they're not interested in edification or education. Like, they're interested in a certain brand of information that will continue to further their agenda or pockets, or whoever it is, because different people for different reasons. So but again, like, this is this is the issue here, because they have these podcasts or repost these videos and say, yeah, you know, you need to be doing this, you need to do that, you want to be the first one to say something, but if I look at your life, you respectfully living with your mama. And in 2024, that's like not even a whole put down, because inflation is crazy. So like, I'm not necessarily 100% mad at it, but it's just like, but you're like, you want to say, oh, I'm a king, I'm a god, I'm a this, but meanwhile, and this isn't just to get on guys in that way. I'm literally just being a little more with on the guys, because that's who usually be on these platforms. It don't usually be that many women, and I could say a lot about that too, but whatever.
Hey, real quick, hey, J Facts, it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, but I'm about to make it bigger, bro. Give me 1 second.
Lord. Dua, or Nahem rather. So yes, oh my gosh, like yes, 1,000% exclamation point. And that's how I'm saying, like, you know someone is not Kemetic because they're either constantly talking caca about other groups of people. They're always they have this idealized version of Kemet, and nothing can be wrong with Kemet. They can't take criticism. Their quality of life, like, you know, your hygiene isn't good. Meanwhile, the 42 say you need to take care of your hygiene and take care of your body temple, but you don't really do that. You don't keep your grooming together. Your diet is trash. Your finances are trash. Your relationships with your family members, your romantic relationships with your kids, your work relationships, you ain't even got a job, or you got a job trash. Like, you're living respectfully, like, and I hate to say this. I really hate to say this. When it comes to that,
I said, say it.
well, I hate to say it, but it's like this is the same group of people who probably subscribe to red pill content, because you and this is men and women, not just men, but it encourages you to blame everybody but you, and have the wildest delusional self-esteem. So many people who feed into red pill content, like, they'll work out and that's it, or they'll work out
right.
and then,
that is the right cash app, man.
So yeah, it's like you subscribe to things and you're living beneath your purpose. You're living beneath what you so-called, like, how can you love Kemet so much? How can you have a version of Kemet that, like, it was this perfect place and you ain't even nowhere near perfect? How, Sway? It don't make no sense. Like, and respectfully,
you is killing it.
like, I got my own issues. I'm not gonna sit here and say, like, I don't got stuff to work on. I got stuff to work on. I'm not a perfect person. I strive for my eye every day. And when I read those 42 every day, there might be something about, oh, I got that road rage today. I need to calm it down.
Excuse the analogy, Queen. Excuse the analogy, but you're taking us to church.
I'm taking you to communion.
There you go.
It's like, so again, I know, like, my physical body temple, because of certain things, like, I did not practice my art within myself. I needed to take better care of myself. So now, okay, I'm on the good foot. I'm working on my diet. I'm working on my weight, blah, 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 working on it. But how you going to sit there and just eat trash all day long and then think, you know, like, that you're reaching goals? And meanwhile, you sloppy doppy, like, 300 pounds. How? Like, make it make sense. And again, but then you want to talk down on other people because they don't reinforce your delusions. That is not Kemetic. That is not what we are about. We are about, and again, you know who says it? The Kemetic orthodoxy folks. They literally have it on their application. If you are not motivated to be highly disciplined, if you are not one who, like, values, conservative values, do not join us.
So
They
do
say
you?
it straight up. You
Let
know
me ask you
who
this.
say
Then.
it? Because we
Do
feel
you?
like we got to bring everybody along. Everybody ain't going to make it. But at the same time, these bozos should not be out here. Right? Right? Like, it's crazy.
Do you
It's
feel
crazy.
like the black practitioners
Uh-huh.
should be requiring similar standards for the practitioners that they bring in terms of how one should conduct themselves and things of that nature?
You trying to get me in trouble, beloved. You
I'm
definitely,
not. I'm not. I'm just. It's just a question. You know.
trying to get
You
me.
don't have to answer.
You definitely trying to get me in trouble. What I will say is, it is challenging because we understand our people and we understand that we have a lot of traumas and we have a lot of because of the system that we have been exposed to and live under within Western civilization, that we just got some certain stuff we need to work through, and it's very challenging to set standards and still try to encourage people to live to those standards. Like so sometimes it does come off of like, why did you initiate that person? They ain't about nothing. Or why did you this? Or why did you that? But there are some, and again, respectfully, I only have experience with certain temples, certain shrines. So I know what the social construction are for those places. I can't speak for other places. There are other people who, I'm definitely about to call caca right now. There is one specific, and it grinds my gears all the time. Like tight lip mad. This person, through Sacred Woman. So Sacred Woman back in the day used to be kind of like people's, and when I say people, most like clearly woman. Then you had, I forget, there's a men's version. I'll read that in a second. Where that was considered kind of like the gateway into being comedic. Like that was kind of like a once you do this program kind of a thing, like that was it. That's what existed. Now we have temples. Now we have all of these things. So people still subscribe to those. So again, like Sacred Woman, they'll go through the program. And again, respect to the elder. I appreciate everything that she's done, because I also understand if it was not for her work and for their work, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to, like it just wouldn't have come to me in the way that it did. Because I was first exposed to the Kemetic legacy through Sacred Woman in college because of someone who was involved in the program. So, do I nut you for that? But you got people who consider themselves priestesses who advertise and say, hey, people who did this 3-month program, hey, pay me some money and I'll give you a Kemetic name.
Oh man.
Excuse me? And that's part of and that's part of the problem, where we are willing for money to pimp out the legacy. Where is the standard? Like, why are your finances superseding Ma'at? That is not okay. And to the point where I know somebody who purchased a name from said individual and then turned to me and said, Menyet, what does this even mean? And I was like, what the?
Wait a minute. Wait.
Selling stuff to people and they don't even know what it is. This person isn't actually even Kemetic. They just went through this program. They feel an emotional connection and they want more, because that's how healing, that's, like you're in that kind of vulnerable space where you just want any and everything. So now you're giving these sacred names and titles and you're appealing to the Necharu for people who don't even fully believe these things. Like, that is spiritually negligent. Like, that is dangerous. And so many people do that. That's not the only priestess that does that. There's another one here in New Jersey who I know does it and is an elder It's crazy. But you know, when I bring it up, because this is the type of stuff that gets me in trouble, people are like, we can't tell them what to do. We can't stop their money. Like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh, okay, my bad. I thought we was appealing to my aunt. There are other people, and again, other shrines that they just want membership. They just want bodies. So they take any and everybody, don't care if they're not on the same page, don't care if they upholding standards, don't care if they hoeing around with the people in the very temple. Like they not on it. Y'all out here being holy. That is not like, but you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, where is the line of distinction? But y'all don't want to read what the white people saying. What?
But and that's what's funny about that is they read what white people say in any other context. So why not? I don't know. That thing right there kind of, because they read white scholars, sure.
Mhm.
But in this, under this context, they don't want to. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Somebody had a question in here.
yeah, I'm going back in the questions because I'm like, I'm pretty much almost at the end. I think I have like maybe like 2 or 3 more slides. So yeah, this is the one I was gonna get to. So I'm gonna preface this with, I love my brother. Not for nothing, I'm like, first of all, my phone is on do not disturb, but I'm like, if that brother knows, like, he'd be like,
Hey, shout out
he
to
don't be yelling at me, but
Shaka Almos. Shout out to Shaka Almos. Hey, I'll say this for myself.
mhm.
When I seen Shaka in the dashiki t-shirts, I went and bought like 10 of them joints.
Yeah.
Shout out to Deannu. If y'all don't know what Deannu.com is, go there. I will put a link in the chat. That's where I get all my African themed attire, and they are thebomb.com. But go ahead, sis, and answer my man's question.
Yeah, so I'm not going to ignore the question. I just have to think about how I want to exercise my art in addressing the question. So I very much appreciate Shaka Amos because he is ridiculously well read. I have taken classes with him. When I get through the caca, he knows his stuff. Me personally, one, he has never said he's comedic. He's multiple times said that he can appreciate different systems. So he doesn't himself identify as comedic. So to me, I would not label him as such. Again, I have talked to him about this. I said, why do you keep wasting your time talking about Christians? Like, why do you keep doing that? Why? Like, it's wasting time. Like, you got this great mind. You could do so much more. But you know why? Because people like controversy. And where there's controversy, there's money. It is what it is. And like, you know, I understand that he came up through certain platforms. He, you know, that's his bread and butter. Like, I can't be mad at him, but I could be mad at him because it's like a lot of things that fly out his mouth, I'm the one catching hell for it. And I've told him that before. Like, the stuff that you say has an effect on the rest of us. And sometimes, like, again, he has the what do you call it? The background.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
not Game of Thrones. So it's like, I think that's my beef with him more so, like, you know, clearly because we know his antics as far as like, he's very New York. You always gonna get New York from Shaka in his execution and explanation of things and his swag. So that, because I'm from Jersey, yeah, all right, like, it don't really bother me like that. It's not my You shouldn't be talking to people like that. You shouldn't be, especially if you're gonna especially if you are speaking or you're seen as speaking on behalf of a lot of people. Like, you represent me, but you don't give a flying fladoodle about what comes out your mouth affects me. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with a lot of these people because of that. And Kemetic practitioners have a lot of problems with that because y'all trying to give this work to the Christians. Like, bruh, you know, we could be building our own communities. Like, you know, you could be using that energy for something else. Like we could be doing a lot more, but you wasting energy. And, you know, if we're going to talk about like Necharu, you got the Necher Men. So the Necher Men, if you've never seen him before, and, you know, shield your children's ears if they're up at this time. But, you know, he has an erect phallus. And essentially he's talking about like your virility, your stamina, if you will. And that can look like a lot of different ways, like not necessarily just sexual prowess, but the idea that like you spending all this time reading all these books to waste your brain space to talk about caca for a couple of dollars. Like how many people are, you know, yes, you can make money doing the social media thing, but a lot of these people still have to have a day job. So you selling out the culture, you selling out people who identify with what you're talking about for what? $30? $30 and his lives be 8 hours long.
Man, 10, 14. I remember this dude did like a 14-hour. I was like, man, you bugging, my G.
And he be on there. And sometimes he be going in and sometimes he just be going. And I'm not saying that he don't make no money because I don't want it to be taken that way that I'm trying to play him. But it's just like not being funny. Our people don't really give money for the scholarship. Our people are very entitled and feel like, you know what, you owe me your work, you owe me your knowledge. And it's just like you said, but you will go and pay for a degree or a certification and not being funny. Even the people who's like, I'm not subscribing to that, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur. You'll pay the state to get a license. You'll pay the state for your LLC. Like you're still going to pay for whatever it is. So essentially, if you are not being reciprocal, if you're not practicing financial ma'at amongst each other, then you don't value it. You don't value it. Look at how many, and I'm not trying to play myself, but look at how many people watch my content versus some of the other content on this platform that's more inflammatory.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't do it for the money. I do it because, again, like I said in the beginning, like I need people to understand you ain't got to be no priest or priestess. You don't have to even have the name right away. Like I want us to understand what the social construction and what it looks like to be an everyday person doing this. It's not about the money.
And that's the thing, sis. I kid you not. Like I got Jabari number and I could call and, you know, hey, bro, when can you come on and carve out a space? But I would rather have you come on and that's not that Jabari, like I rock with Jabari. That's my man. But it's something that's more boots on the ground and more genuine when you come on and do your thing. And my man J Rock, you can tell by his enthusiasm that he understands. It's something about how you put your demonstration down. And that, again, that's not a knock to Jabari. Everybody know that's my man, but it's just something more potent when you come on and do what you do. So I rather that.
I appreciate that. And I definitely agree. Like, I think it is very much in, I don't want to say poor taste, but I just can't think of another way of phrasing it. Like, it is very Isfet of us. So Isfet, if you don't know, that's like evil, chaos, like all over the place, could discombobulate it. Like, you know, you can use a lot of words for Isfet, but generally speaking, like email, listen to me, evil. It is very aesthetic. Like we have, even within the Kemetic community, conscious community, woke community, like it is very aesthetic of us to not take care of our elders. We don't need to argue with them. We don't got to agree with everything that they say. We don't have to agree with everything that that the educators or scholars say or anything like that, but it takes time. It takes time to learn these things. It takes time to sit and meditate on these things. It takes time to put these things together and to just sit back and us be entertainment. We've been reduced to entertainment. Our elders have been pushed out. Again, Americanness being brought into the Kemetic legacy. And we don't take care of our own. We're too busy being individuals, getting this money. And that's a problem. And that shouldn't be, because again, that's not what it was like back in the day. But that's for, next show. So just to kind of round us out for this one, and then so we can be done, or hurry up and be done. So Pan-Africanist, a lot of times, and this was my issue with Beloved from the beginning, who was calling me a liar because I'm not off it, and asking me for my receipts. Why are we talking to each other like that?
Man, I don't know if y'all can see Sis' face, but
like, I'm very expressive. Like when I be at work, the kids, they specifically do stuff just to see my reaction in my faces. Like I need to work on learning how to play poker so that I could get a better poker face, because it just whatever. But anyway, so it's just this idea of like, I can appreciate the Pan-Africanist. I can appreciate the person who is trying to free themselves and liberate themselves, but don't have the tools. I can appreciate the person who is searching. I can appreciate all of that. But that doesn't, zero poker face. I'm sorry.
And if I can, I know I'm speaking for bro, and I'm saying this in a hopeful sense. I hope he was saying all lies, and that the people or the sources that say Kemet had slaves were lying, and not saying you personally were lying. That's what I'm hoping he meant.
I don't take that part personally, because I mean, again, if I'm going to step out here, I got to know not everybody's going to, agree with me, be my friend, be nice, or, or exercise Ma'at in their speech and utilize divine speech with me. So I understand that once I say, okay, I'm going to come on. But for that person to be of status within a Kemetic temple is kind of ridiculous. I'm just saying. So, but and what's interesting is, I'm about to go find that source now so I can send it to you so you can send it to him. And then
100%.
What's going to be the problem? Oh, we're not going to believe in that source. That's not a good source. I question that source. I already know what it is.
I already remember. I ran off the 3 forms that they had. I already got a source.
Oh, he said he disagreed with that too. No, there was an actual source that talked about, and I got to go back in my notes somewhere and find it, about slavery in Kemet. So like that, it's a thing. There are plenty of writings about it. Just I need to go find the specifics, because I know a lot, but I forget a lot. So, so the Pan-Africanist. A lot of times Pan-Africanists, and how I say this, these are people who are like in study groups. Like these are the people who are focused on learn the history, learn the information, but never really talk about applying it. Like they don't talk about, oh, okay, this is what happened. Let's learn the lessons of our ancestors. Like you're Pan-Africanist, but you don't practice Sankofa, but you preach Sankofa all the time. How? That don't make any sense. So like that's why I say the Pan-Africanist is in their mind space. They are in the space of idealizing and what should be, what woulda, coulda, shoulda been, but not necessarily like, okay, what so if you see that there is a certain thing that the Kemetu did back in the day, where are you trying to recreate that or learn the lesson of those ancestors and move it forward? Like, but it's just kind of like, oh gosh, it's something where it's basically like, if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, it's like a Schmeagol thing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. You'll get an image. It's gonna be wild. It's amazing. But it's like that's how I see a lot of these study groups. Like they're just a bunch of Schmeagles. Like y'all just want to gather all the information and fawn over the information and feel good about the information and then bite anybody who's coming around you and trying to do something with it or thinking about it different or interpreting it differently than you. Like it's just it's not helpful. And that's why I say, like, when I don't particularly consider study group folks to be comedic because of the lack of action and critical thinking around what those actions should look like. Now, again, when I say factions, you have people who, yes, my precious, where you will have people kind of because there's no, you get to this level and then you get to this level, like, it's fluid. So some areas people are might be a little more fake it till you make it, aka they'll be in the Aunu Hotep phase, and then some places they'll be in the reading space, and we should all get along and kumbaya because we're Pan-Africanists and I'm African, you're an African, and excuse me, that's cool. There's no problem with that. But again, it's not all the same. Like sometimes people put a Pan-Africanist agenda ahead of a Kemetic agenda, if there was one. Like if we have a temple, a shrine, if we want to do Saruj Tawi, Smai Tawi, the unification, working together, like even if we don't look at the ancient Kemetiu, even if we just look at our recent ancestors from like the civil rights movement, how they like, oh my gosh, and no lie, the injustice we have done to teaching about Rosa Parks is ridiculous. Like because when you really learn how well organized ahead of the time that all that stuff went down, and the organization she was a part of for years, and we just say, oh, she was tired one day and then whoop, here we go. Like it was just some kind of
like there was no strategy behind it.
Yeah, and it's just like, so the Kemetiu has strategy. They had discipline. Like, how do you think they were able to grow? How do you think they were able to do these things? By exercising discipline, by having systems in place, by like, but you're just sitting here like, oh no, we're all the same. Like we're all the same, yet at the same time we are not. And that is part of the human experience. And it's okay for us to work with each other, disagree with each other, agree with each other, work alongside, or I'm going to go off, do my thing, you do your thing. And so long as it's not, harming each other, that's fine. But it's kind of like it has to be an all or nothing situation. And that's also very problematic. So when I break it down, a lot of times, and this was one of the things Garfield was, oh man, my bad. Oh, well. So he was just like, and just because Black people and they got dark skin and yada, 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 and they think they're them, and that's not the truth. And I mean, that's an accurate representation. Because you know why? A lot of these online folks, and respectfully, at a time, I too was guilty of it. I now understand better, and I'm doing better. So if you look at some of my old stuff, you're like, man, yeah, you being a hypocrite. Like, yeah, I know, but that was then when I didn't know any better. And I did have a level of ignorance around certain things. Like, respectfully, there are a lot of people who are culturally appropriating Kemetic stuff. That they are, like they were saying, like, we give West African features to the ancient Kemetiu and this, that, and the third. And at the time, I never really thought about it until I actually went to Kemet. Like when I actually went to Kemet and I saw what the people looked like and the regions that they were living in and stuff like that. And granted, I only have a 2 week, it was 2 weeks, 2 week experience. So it will take me time to like further flush this out or whatever. But it's just like, no, the people in Upper Kemet do not necessarily look like how we do in America. And so it's just like I do think we do need to do better justice when it comes to how we artistically represent the Kemetiu, because there were different shades of people. There were, depending on the time period and who you're talking about. Like, it's never really given the specificity that this is the time period I'm talking about, or this is the Nasud I'm talking about, or this is the familial line I'm talking about. It's just, oh, commit to you, and they all look like this. Like, no, that's disingenuous. That's not true. And again, depending on what time period you're in, that shift a lot. But even the darker skinned folks who are currently there, like a lot of times people will say, I'll come back to it in a second. Yeah, now I'm thinking about that. That totally got me off because I saw
My bad.
It's okay. It's just the idea that, like, we are bringing Americanness into Kemet, and that's not okay. We get mad at white folks for colonizing, but then we gonna go ahead and colonize people on the continent and then totally disregard their feelings about it. Not everybody is like, you know, people, oh, they're not all Arab and blah blah blah. Well, what time period are we talking about here? You know, or what group of people are you talking about? Like, you know, because there were different ethnicities living in Kemet. Like, Kemet was, I don't want to make the comparison to say it was like the United States, no, but they had different groups of people living within the various regions. So
I think it would be accurate to say maybe not like the United States as a whole, but if you wanted to say it was like New York or like LA, where you had this. Because I think at some point you did have, because you had the Assyrians, you had the Persians, you had the Greeks, all with these invasions. You had
not just invasions, but I mean, you know, we had trade, we had commerce, we married, we, you know, like it's not just war. Like it wasn't.
Right.
Like, and that's why I say the propaganda tool of understanding the black and white, like, that's very problematic because that people are people. Like, we mix amongst each other. And again, depending on the time period you're in.
If the Amu or the Hyksos, I always say Amu, but if they ruled for at least 200 years, then you would have to think there was some assimilation there as well. So I don't even know why do we get so caught up in that particular, talking point?
You know why? Because we have a historical wound. Excuse me. I drank the water and went right down the wrong way, but we have a historical wound that has never been addressed. So unlike South Africa, that had truth and reconciliation. Now, was it actually successful? Not really, but they at least made the effort to say, hey, this effed up stuff happened. These are the people who are guilty of it. Let's have healing. That never existed. Technically, we have some apology government not mandates, but like, what do they call that? I can't think of the word, but where they like issue a declaration like, hey, we're sorry. And Congress did that. If I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the year, you could Google it. But it's been done before. Different like people in history have, stuff like that. But it's never been, and we can see this now in contemporary society where we still have a lot of anti-Blackness, a lot of, levels of discrimination and colorism and all of these things. We've never reconciled this. And again, because we have these traumas and these pains and these hurts, like we will continue to bring that trauma with us like a badge of honor because, I went through it, so it's okay. Like, bro, you're not okay. We are not okay. Stop saying we're okay when we're not. Like it's not it. So conflating, we do a lot of conflating because again, and I understand, remember from the 70s, our elders wanted us to have a pinnacle. They wanted us to have something to look for because we were coming out of segregation. We were desegregating schools. Like having a pinnacle was supposed to be it for us. And again, because we're humans, things evolve. And now it's just like, that's not it anymore. Like it's just not hitting anymore. But yet a lot of people within these areas and spaces want to keep repeating stuff that was relevant 40, 50, 60 years ago, and it's not hidden. Why do you think the kids are listening to what they're listening to, and the young people are getting into what they're getting into? Because y'all are antiquated. Y'all are not up with the times, as they, as is said. So a lot of it is political motivation. So there is a certain temple in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, right outside of New York City, right near the George Washington Bridge, if you want to do a little googly Google, because I'm not going to name them. And they specifically, if you watch their podcasts, how many red pill Republican cloaked, and when I say Republican, I really mean just Christian conservative talking points do they use to defend their thing. And that's problematic because they say they're better than a lot of other Kemetic temples and shrines, and that they're the only authentic folks, which again is very Abrahamic, because that didn't exist in Kemet, because we didn't practice that way at all. So it's weird. It's very weird. Your execution is weird. Exclusively centering ourselves on the African American experience, again, negating I don't know what the word, not difference, diversity within Kemet, ego-centered, ego-serving, various spiritual houses. Like we're disjointed. We haven't come to a conclusion to say like, okay, this is the standard for Kemites. Again, this is why we got some people selling names for the low. This is why we have certain people letting certain things happen and let it fly and not check it as a community. And that's a problem. People, I'm an authority in this temple and I'm an authority in this shrine, so don't go over there because they want their numbers. So it's like, it's weird. It's very weird. And then we got the Abrahamic apologists who they just been feeling like they've been getting attacked for years, and they got to come back and say something, but they're basing it off of a bunch of people who didn't have the right to speak for me in the first place. So there you go.
I got to drop a bomb, because a lot of people don't understand the energy that they have now is based on the energy that was given to them. And that don't have nothing to do with someone like yourself.
Nope.
and other like-minded people. But it falls back on you because you are being genuine in what you are trying to represent, while other people are perpetrating a fraud.
Okay. So I'll agree with perpetrating. I will not necessarily say fraud, because
now I'm specifically talking about some individuals who's I'll say first name Poe, last name Light.
Oh, he's cockeyed anyway, so it's all right.
Yeah. And the young pharaohs, Sarah Suit Setis of the world. Yeah, those are the individuals I'm talking about. And I name names because I don't even want to leave it ambiguous.
Respectfully,
I don't think that they
care about them no more. Like they're passe. They had their day, and they're not in vogue. They're not trending. So the only people who really follow them are either loyalists who, confirmation bias, or new people who don't know.
Right. But I think that energy is where the aggression came from, as far as the apologetic scene.
It definitely is. But again, that's why I went over the identity model. Mm-hmm. They're stuck in I'm mad. They haven't gone to the next step yet, and they make money off of staying on that step. It just is what it is. So recognize it for what it is and keep it smoking. That's it.
100%.
So I wanted to just put this up there. I'm not necessarily going to go over like the rules of debate and stuff like that. But if you've ever taken a debate class, like it is nerve-wracking, like how you have to have the discipline of kind of making your point. And
I'm gonna screenshot that and share it.
Oh, hey, I'm gonna go ahead. Wait. Let me go back. Go ahead.
No, no, I can go.
No, I'm like, not like I didn't just share it with you before, but whatever. All right, so I'm gonna speed through this. So I think the other thing that a lot of people are challenged by is their own religious experience and understanding that people who are comedic practitioners, and this is for people who are newly interested, initiating, newly initiated. Some people who, depending on who initiated them, they might have some of these talking points too. Um, but the idea that religion is bad, again, it comes from a place of trauma. It comes from a place of my grandma didn't let me do this because the church that. It comes from the Abrahamic system treated me like this, therefore that is religion, and that is not. That's that brand of religion. So it's just like, never nothing. Like, I can eat a cereal, and I may like Kellogg's brand, I may like Post brand, I may like Whole Foods brand, I may like No Frills brand. And even though they're all the same cereal, depending on your taste buds, it might taste a little bit different. And that's religion. And again, the function of religion is to create morals, values, systems, etc., for how we deal with each other and what are our norms and what we believe and what we're going for and all of that. So religion has its place, and it is not all evil, it is not all bad. Religion in general, again, whether it was back in the day, Kemet, or whether it's now, whomever you want to talk about, there's good and bad. There's people who take advantage, there's people who abuse. Like, I mean, let's be clear, even back in the day, in Kemet, part of the downfall was because the priest class became too big, too greedy, and didn't follow Ma'at, even though they were peddling Ma'at. Point blank, period. Tell me I'm lying. Go ahead, I'm waiting. Let me stop. Oh, anyway. So the whole idea of spirituality. So this, again, this would be like your morals, how you show up in the world, your specific belief system, and it's influenced by your surroundings, the people you're around, how you were born, your birth order, all of that stuff. So how you deal with deities, the metaphysical universe, again, people have different words for different things, involves your human quality. Like, are you No Frills brand cereal? Are you Kellogg's cereal with all the GMOs? Like, what brand of human are you? Are you the kind who's going to talk caca and tell people they're lying every 2 seconds because they don't listen to you? Like, and think you're necessarily correct in your interpretation, but you don't even want to hear it. You just want to name call. Like, do you, like, what is your own well-being? What do you do to take care of your mental? What do you do to take care of your physical? What do you do to take care of your family? What do you do to manifest and create healthy and positive relationships? Like, what are you doing personally? That's spirituality. And I mean, this is just Menyet's explanation. It can be so much more for other people. This is just like, to just try to simplify, quantify something. And then religion, again, institutionalized patterns. So like here in New Jersey, depending on what county you're in, because of Abrahamic values, stores are closed on Sunday. That is an institutionalized pattern that they value. Let's have off for Sunday. Now, granted, that specific county is very diverse. They got a lot of Jewish people, they got a lot of Muslim people, they got a lot of non-Christian people, but at the same time, and it's something that goes up for a vote every couple of years, they still maintain having that day off. What are the beliefs? What symbols do we agree on? That is, because I know that there are some people that say people who aren't Kemetic shouldn't wear the ankh. I went to, I forget what that church was over in New York, because I went to church with my mom one time. Oh my God. It was really big during the civil rights movement, but it's like in Harlem. And we went to this church and I met the assistant pastor, and he had on ankh earrings. And you know me, I wasn't trying to pry into matters to make mischief. However, I had pressing questions I needed to ask. And the way he explained it was like, oh no, like it's for everybody, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, how are you going to be a whole Christian minister wearing a different, like Jewish people don't wear crosses, like Muslim people don't wear stars of David, like people who I'm trying to think, Hindus don't wear the cross, like, you know what I mean? Like, generally speaking, not to say that there aren't some people that won't do that or look at it as just jewelry, because yes, there are people like that too. But generally speaking, if you are a person and a practitioner of that, you're not going to do that kind of thing. So it's very interesting. So again, what behaviors? Do you turn the other cheek? Do you not? Do you, go out and stab them in the eyeball? Do you push their grandma down the stairs? Like, what again are we going for? So again, if we were going to go with the Kemetic thing, we got the 42. We have our mythos. We have these things that say this is what dictates how we should behave. This is what dictates how we do things and how we operate. So I'm not necessarily going to go over this specific article. I could send the article, but this gentleman is a professor at Harvard, and essentially the word for when it comes to African systems in general, the idea of religion and all of that, like it's all kind of like it's holistic living. Like there is no separation in general. So it is the way you live your life. It is the way you worship. It is the way you pay your taxes. It is the way that I'm sick and I need medical care. It's all interrelated with each other. And part of it, the beauty of African religions or spiritual systems is they allow for multiplicity. They allow for different perspectives to coexist simultaneously, whether it be within your one person, within the society, etc. It isn't like the Abrahamic where this is it, this is the truth, this is the way it is, and this is the only way kind of thing. And again, I say that because a lot of people within these spaces, I'm going to tell you the truth. That's not this. There are multiple truths. Like there's a little t truth, which is my own personal truth. And then there's big T truth. What the overall experience, what nature dictates. Like, I can't fight against gravity no matter how much I think and believe, like, I'm going to fly one day. Unless I'm in a plane, I'm about to fall out this window. Like, because the big T truth is that my human body is not light enough to jump out that window. It's just not going to happen. So within our religions or spiritual systems, if we're coming from a place, an African mindset, is that you can take a little bit here, a little bit there, and still not necessarily mush it all together per se. And again, depending on the system, that may not be okay to do, or it might be okay to do, because again, depends on what system you're looking at. But that is the beauty of it, that you can practice various religious beliefs or spiritual and hold different spiritual beliefs all within you at the same time. So a lot of times people will say, ancient Kemet was polytheistic. Like, so there's a difference in that, and that's an oversimplification again, because we've been schooled, we've gone to school, and, my 6th grade teacher told me that ancient Egypt was polytheistic. They don't know. So we have hard polytheism. We have soft polytheism. I'm not going to concentrate on those specifically. But when we think of contemporary Kemites, we think of monolarity, hentotheism, and then Cathan theism. That one, I ain't practiced that one. Don't tell nobody. So when it comes to monolarity, it's this idea like, yes, there is a supreme deity. We will see this a lot in ancient Kemet, where it's like Amen, that's one of the things that got, I forget what his name is off the top of my head right now, but that's what got old boy in trouble for changing up the system, because he disrespected the state deity. He disrespected thank you. I was like, I was about to say King Tut's daddy.
Right.
But anyway, So like that's what got him in trouble. So again, depending on where you were, because there were 42 gnomes, there were different practices in different areas, and they were all permitted to exist simultaneously. So there are some temples that will say, no, this is the top deity. Everybody else exists. They're cool, but we don't really, chill with them. We really over here with Ra, Amun, Asar, whatever. Then we have henotheism, recognizes many deities, yet you choose to focus exclusively on one. So this may be like a familial deity, a local deity, or Neteru. So like most temples have their own chief deity, different things that they different energies or Neteru that they want to concentrate on. And then many people who I know of that are practicing Kemetiu are the last one, which I'm not going to butcher that again. I'm gonna y'all put it in Google and then press the speaker and it'll tell you, where we can understand, appreciate that these various deities, energies, whatever word you want to use, exist all at the same time. And sometimes I need to work on, like, for example, I have Het Haru. I've been working on Het Haru energy for a while, because like I said, I took like a year off from doing this stuff. And it is her energy specifically is what I need right now. Simultaneously, and I'm like saying too much, but I know some people may not understand what I'm talking about. When it comes to Rep Pet, so the Kemetic New Year, and you can look that up, and I'm not going to get into that today, but sometimes you concentrate or focus on one of the Rep Pet Neteru. So this year I'm also focusing on Haru Or. And I'm still trying to forgive me, I'm trying to break the habit of rolling my R's. I know in Sesh Medu Necha and Ronnie Kemet, you're not supposed to roll your R's. It's a bad habit, my bad. But I'm working with Haru Or. So it's just like, I understand that energy. And on that day, or, depending on what's going on in my life and this, that, and the third, okay, let me focus back on that. Let me look at that Necha, or let me have that altar up over here. And then I'm going to have a Het Haru altar over here, because that's what this season in my life, because this is my 40th year on this earth. I'll be 41 in August. And this year I just felt like, 40 is about Het Haru. I need to work on that. But then, so I can kind of, yeah. So most Kemetiu that I know, like if you just say they're polytheistic, not really, because, and again, this is why I said what I said earlier. When you have more vocabulary to be specific about what it is that you're talking about and what it is you understand and how you perceive the world, then it helps people understand you. It helps you understand you. It helps you understand the world around you. So that's why I wanted to take the time to put these things up there. So African spirituality simply acknowledges and believes that beliefs and practices touch on and inform every facet of human life, and therefore African religion cannot be separated from the everyday or the mundane. So going to work and getting into traffic, that's something I can contemplate on and take it there. It's not just something that just randomly happened to me. Every small gesture, like what is it? So pantheism also, it's within there. Okay, so there are more words than the ones that I have included that describe different versions of polytheism, if you will. But these are the ones that I concentrate on that are more relevant in trying to explain the Kemetic expression. But there are plenty of others to Google out there. But this is very important, where our wisdom text tells us, make your life the subject of intense inquiry. So you are supposed to, and again, this is why I say you can't be sitting here calling yourself Kemetic and you're not analyzing why your life is looking the way it is, why you're not taking radical responsibility for how it looks, how you get along with your parents or don't get along because they did this when I was 3. Like, okay, you're 50 now. What are you doing? How are you showing up different? Why are you letting that hurt little child still come out and play? So it's everything. everything. Like, it is not just books to read. It is not just arguments to be had on the internet. This is something that is consistently lived every day. And sometimes you get it, and sometimes the road rage just takes you. You know, sometimes you cuss out people because they have dark humor and they trigger you. Like, it happens. But the idea is, all right, I need to restore better. How do I make this better in myself? How do I make this better in my relationship? How do I make sure that this doesn't affect me in the workplace? How do I do that? That is what, when people say, oh, Maat is irrelevant. No, this is exactly why it's relevant. Because in 2024, when things, you know, everybody, oh, I'm about to be an expat. I'm going to go move somewhere else. I need to be up out of here. This is crazy. Blah, blah, blah. All of that talk. You know, all the talk about modern women and they don't this and alpha male that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just touching on, you know, just, I know these are conversations that are being had right now, but it's like Maat, if Maat is our foundation, it is pre-done. The ancestors did all the work. All we have to do is have the courage, the conviction, and the discipline to execute. Like, think about, and when I go back to, and I believe this is, I should have had that earlier. But when we think about racism and injustice, like, I will not do iniquity. So that person who posted that joke, if they were a comedic person and they were reading the 42 and they were, you know, living on that, they wouldn't be out here posting that type of joke. I have not done violence. Now, violence, and again, I'm not going to get into all of these because that'll be our next 5-hour show.
Hey, look, we can't not go over 3 hours. That's just.
I said I try, and mind you,
I think we said we was gonna do like an hour too. Like, man,
we do too. But like, if you like, I have done no murder or harm, and it's just like, I mean, it's pretty easy. Like, oh, I'm not gonna go stab somebody in the face, but what if you walk in on your partner cheating on you? Because the first thing people gonna say is, oh, it couldn't be me, blah blah blah. You know, like, we want to be in that ego place. But if you like, again,
I choose violence. I ain't gonna hold you.
Look, I'll pray for you, son. I'll pray for you.
I appreciate you.
But it's like, okay, so, and I give an example. Now, maybe that is something that's too much. So I, for a long time in the temple, I had originally gone there and I was engaged and I was going to be married. And, you know, clearly didn't work out. And this person found a new mate, dua nurture. They're happy. They're married. They have kids now. But I had to sit with myself. I had to sit with myself because they were worshiping where I was worshiping.
I was just about to say, now, wait a minute. I just want to make sure we clear. So they in the same space you in.
And I had to see them and watch their love blossom. And they got up there and we're getting married. Like, all of that. And I sat in it because, you know what? I had a part to play in that relationship, not being where I mean, it wasn't meant to be anyway. But the point of the matter is, like, how dare I be a hater? How dare I leave a temple and for something that I think is sacred to me and leave it because other people, you know what I mean? Like, this is why I say, like, being comedic is not for the faint of heart. It is not about just reading some books and arguing with some folks. That's not what it is.
That's heavy.
A lot of discipline. So it's like, I have not told lies. So I'm not going to run my mouth, even though I might be in my feelings. I'm not going to run my mouth. I'm not going to shoot no looks at people. I'm not going to roll my eyes. Was I always successful? No, no, I wasn't always successful. It was very difficult. It was very challenging.
I salute you on that one.
Like, it's hard. It's hard to live up to this stuff. And it's more than just the 42. Like, 42 is like the cliff notes.
Are you still sharing your screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it not on anymore? It's okay.
No, no,
'cause
no.
that was
You good. You good. I just didn't know if it was if you wanted me to take it down.
Yeah, no, it's is this pretty much it. So it's like when we're talking about the next generation, how do we want to raise the next generation? Do we want Sexy Red and Drake raising the next generation, or do we want to try to give them some principles and parameters and social constructions that we think will actually be better and uplift them and give them a sense of self and meet those needs that Maslow was talking about, those higher things? Or do we want to, oh, well, everybody want to do their own thing, go get your money, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Drake
do
not
we
like us.
raise our economics? Like, do we want to stop, racism? Do we want to push for justice? Excuse me. So all of those things are more so what I want to get into next time. So next time, just understanding what Ma'at is and understanding who Ma'at is, going over the 42. I'm just going to do that lightly. Like I said, on Mondays, if you want to go on like my Instagram, I do have some old Monday morning Ma'ats that I kind of already started breaking them down and stuff like that. So I'm really just going to do like an overview, and then just in general, like, I'm going to come with real life situations to illustrate, like, no, these people who are saying Ma'at is irrelevant are, one, not living by Ma'at themselves, and two, do not have that deeper understanding to be able to apply those things. They haven't gone through the dark nights of the soul to really sit in it, understand what it is they went through, why they went through it, what the lessons were, and how to actually cultivate this and deal with situations so you're not going to jail. I mean, like, we're gonna sit here and talk about justice. One of the reasons why we're not getting justice and stuff like that is because our economics, our young people are out there selling things they shouldn't be selling.
Facts.
So that they can make money, because our families are jacked, because our families are torn apart, and for a myriad of reasons, which again is next time. So it's a lot of stuff. So when people want to sit here and, the community, they ain't about nothing, they just about looking cute, and they all think they're Egyptian and they're wrong and they're this and they're that, those are a bunch of people who they have an agenda, whether it's a Abrahamic agenda, an ego agenda, a capitalist agenda. They are people who are not living by these principles. So to sit here and tell me you're wrong, but meanwhile you was out here all of 50 dating a 24-year-old beloved.
Man.
Beloved. And again, mad respect, still love you, still want to,
shame.
Learn.
Shame. Shame.
But it's just like it's
shame.
It is what it is. So that's where I'm gonna end. I'm gonna go back and see if there's any questions, but I'm officially that's my whole 2 hours worth of presentation.
so the most pertinent question is from my man J Fax.
Okay.
And he just simply said, when is part 2? Essentially.
We need to discuss that.
Yeah. We gonna let you know, Jay, and she definitely coming back, but we're gonna let you know when. We got to figure out what the best time is for the queen, and see if it line up with what I got going on. But we're gonna make it happen. It'll probably be on another Thursday, so that's usually when we rock out. But yeah, she definitely coming back. We will keep you posted. But I appreciate your support, bro.
I appreciate Jay Fax for like low key being like, why y'all keep asking her about the Bible? Like, yeah,
exactly. And Jay Fax is a Christian. And he like, why y'all keep asking her about the Bible?
Like, that's the Bible is for Christians. That's not for me. That's cool for them. That's it. That's all I gotta say.
And I think that was his point. He like, if I was up there, you can ask me about the Bible, but why you asking her?
But I do want to. I really don't understand. Were there women teachers? Like, he's talking about like an ancient Kemet. Is that like?
I think so. I think he was asking if it was. So you know how the Bible says, "Suffer a woman not to teach." I guess he was asking, was it the same way in ancient Kemet?
I mean, let's be clear. There was definitely gender and sex differentiation and like, you know, women do this, men do this, and blah 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 like that. It existed back then. Women weren't allowed to do certain things, but I think that's the easiest way to say it. Like, but there were women priestesses and so on and so forth. But I mean, it was a stratified ancient society. Like,
yeah, I don't think, and I hope I don't butcher the queen name, but I don't think is it Hephaestus? How do you say her name?
you said
The queen. I cannot think of. Here, let me. Because now I gotta find it. I cannot say her name correctly. Let's see. Hishepsit.
Tell me why I thought that, and I was just like, but
Man.
he was pronouncing it. I was like, no, maybe it's not it.
I
should have said it with my whole chest.
There you go. But yeah, I think that she didn't dress a particular way for no reason at times. So
I mean,
but I don't know.
Another discussion for another day. But
yeah, I meant I'm definitely gonna follow up with that with you offline because I have no idea what the motivation was behind that, so I'm purely speculating.
Oh, that's easy breezy. So Notes from the Underground said the 42-hour list of moral. I think I don't know if that was like an agreement type of thing or a question, but I just want to address that point because I'm going to be going over the 42 and just next time. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, as always, it's been educational and absolutely a pleasure. We had almost 3.5 hours. I should have known we couldn't do
I told you I'm a yapper.
Just an hour or two. But I definitely appreciate you. Family, follow her on and we took it down, but she on Facebook, Instagram. She also has a website, all of the social medias, and follow the sister. She has a Facebook group, Comedic Living. How do you say it? Comedic Living in the 21st
century.
Comedic Living in the 21st century. Go to the group. It's a nice group. I believe I'm still in it. I haven't posted in a while, but I think I'm still in it.
It's all right. I said I took a year off, so I'm back to kind of getting everything together because I saw a couple of posts and they were like, delete. Like it was like, buy my products. I'm like, that is not the function of this group, sir.
Okay. But, yeah. So yeah, follow the sister. She put out some powerful content, very informative. She don't mind asking questions, and she will be back. We're gonna figure out what the best time is. We thank you. Hit that Cash App. I'm gonna leave you with this, a little something I made. It's just the sister doing her thing. Sis, I'm gonna let you go, get you some rest, and we definitely appreciate you.
All right, Dua, Jennifer, have a good night.
Likewise.
Where we going with it? Now where we going with it? Where we going with it? What? Where we going with it? Ha! Yo, where we going with it? Ha! Where we going with it? Going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time.
How many years?
About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I seen kingdoms come and I seen kingdoms fall. You can check it for yourself. You can read it on the wall like graffiti on the wall. Metal nets is what it's called. I taught y'all in the past. Now I'm back to teach you all how to elevate and repent from filthy ways. I know it's hard, but it feels good to fast for 30 days. I got y'all searching for the land that's across the burning sands, where the men turn into gods and the gods turn into